worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. There's some people in the world that care about you, and they may not look like you.
But don't worry about
There's
it.
some people watching everything you do. They're really just looking out for you.
So don't worry about it.
There's so much more to the world than what they teach you. There's so much more to the world, and they're gonna reach you.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. There's a guy in the sky with a suit and a tie and a plan for a global order. Don't worry about it. Some people with money just taking it from me. They can make it better than I can. Don't worry about it. There's so much more to the world than what they teach you. There's so much more to the world, and they're gonna reach you.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Hello, chat. How are you doing? I put together a big intro, and I believe, despite my best efforts, I think Rumble actually fucked it up. If the bitrate doesn't improve, I wonder if I can emergency switch over to because what I use is a restream service from Rumble, and the bitrate should be really high, but it doesn't. It seems like Rumble's actually under attack or something, and it can't put out a proper feed. So I wonder if I can switch that over real quick. No, it seems like it's fine now. It just takes a second or something. Okay, I have a high quality recording. I'm just gonna barrel ahead. It's on Kick. It seems like Kick is fine. It seems like Rumble is fine. If it doesn't, I don't know. I guess I'm just fucked. Anyways, if you couldn't pick up on the theme based on the intro music, the spoiler alert, it's Francis E. Deck, Esquire, from 28 Maple Avenue, Hempstead, New York. This is probably, I don't know if you can hear it, probably the most notes I've taken for a person stream ever. I have 8 pages of notes because he has such a long history, chat, going all the way back to the 60s, I want to say, is when he truly lost his mind. So, as I warned, I don't do a soft intro on my people stream. So I'm going to go through, start at the very beginning, and then a lot of this will be audio. I have quite a few very specific pieces of audio picked out for your listening pleasure. Senior users of the Kiwi Farms will no doubt be familiar with most of them. However, I think that for most people, Francis E. Deck is 1 or 2 different popular recordings, and everything else is just sort of written off as he's a complete lunatic, and his writings had no bearing in reality. But what I've discovered by going through my notes is that every single thing I knew about him tied into his writings and what he believed. And he actually has a pretty well-developed world in his head of how it operated. It's logically consistent as far as his historical fantasism goes, and it starts as all tragedies do in Poland. His mother and his father came from the same region of modern day Poland, around Krakow, and there's a little bit more to that that I'll get to in a second. Um, his mother, by the way, not much is known about his parents because they were both born in 1890s. His mother appears to be someone who lies about her age. So it's actually not entirely obvious to me if maybe she was just insane or if she was one of those people who was very insecure about her age. So she would lie about it a lot just because out of insecurity. In particular, her husband, and her name, by the way, was Rosalina Ronech, and her husband's name was Jan Dek. And they were both, as I said, both born in modern day Poland. His mother attempted to come over to the United States in 1909, but was refused entry because she had something called trachoma, which is related to chlamydia, but it's not a STI. So she was not a hoe, but she had a yucky, like the disease manifests as like a gunky eye. So she had a gunky eye. And apparently, if you had a gunky eye on Ellis Island, you got sent back to Poland, where you came from. So she made it all the way to the United States in 1909 as a, let's see, as a 19-year-old. She had a gunky eye, and then an American boy on Ellis Island looked at her gunky eye of this 19-year-old girl and said, "You got to go back." So our standards for immigration have changed immensely over the years. Her husband though, Yandek, actually she did manage eventually to come over to the United States and started working in a jute factory. If you don't know what a jute is, it's a fiber. So she would make fabric. I think it's like canvas, like Durlap sacks are made from jute fibers. Her husband eventually came over, I think in 1912, and renamed to John, which is what Jan is in Poland. It's the Polish name for John. He was a butcher. So they were living together in New York. And the first child, 1921, Joseph Idek is born, who is a major player in this story. But Francis Idek himself was born in 1926, just in time to be a part of the greatest generation. However, before he enlisted in the military, he was a student at a private Polish Catholic nunnery. And I had to look up what this was because I've never heard of it. He was a member of a grammar school. Now, my understanding is that in modern day UK, they still have these grammar schools, and they're just sort of like posh secondary schools or something. However, they literally taught grammar. So the foundation of their education at a Polish Catholic nunnery grammar school was Latin. And so phonetics and linguistic education was the bedrock of what they taught, which is important. If it sounds like I'm just kind of rattling off a timeline, I kind of am. But at the same time, every single thing that I've just mentioned is going to manifest in certain subtle ways in the craziest shit you've ever read and ever listened to. So, important note, he studied as a child at a Polish Catholic grammar nunnery and then eventually enlisted in the U.S. Army. He was enlisted in Fort Dix in New Jersey. And I have a picture of him, actually. Let's see. Here we go. So this is his birth certificate. It lists him as coming from parents from Poland. But that actually is a discrepancy. There is another document that I'll show you later on, which indicates that his parents were not born in Poland, and there's a funny story to that. This is him in 1944, so the most Polish-looking. There's that guy, that kid who's in that meme about cryptocurrency. He's like Russian or something, but most Slavic-looking kid you've ever seen. He just has the look to him. This is him supposedly at like 18, right? Yeah, 18. In the military. It looks like a little kid, so he's still baby-faced here. And he ended up stationed in Biloxi, which is a military base that ended up being the setting of Biloxi Blues, a film starring Matthew Broderick from the 1980s. Unfortunately, deprived are we? Actually, in the exact same time, because it's set in World War II. Unfortunately, Francis E. Deck is not a side character cast by a handsome young man in Biloxi Blues, so we did miss out on that. Um, but here's the kicker. Okay, he ends up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, receiving an education as a private first class. He became a skilled member of the military. That's the designation for him in radio communications, which again might seem like a random bullshit thing. Like, okay, he went to the military, he got a technical training in radio communications. One of the most important fascinations of his in his rants was radio communique. So something about his experience here spooked him or resonated very deeply with him because he never went a day in his life without thinking about radio. So after 30 weeks in the Air Force Technical School, he was deemed combat capable, but he never left the U.S. He had an honorable discharge. He received the World War II Victory Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and the American Campaign Medal, because I believe that the majority of his work was in Dallas in what's called Love Field, which is now a decommissioned air base, if I remember. And his job was mostly maintaining airplanes that were used to protect the coast. So he did not go over to fight in Europe or in the Pacific campaign, but he was a member of the military. And he was a private first class at the time that he left the military. He then went on to actually have a pretty impressive professional career. He both worked in Nassau County, New York as a police officer, which he maintained for about 10 years. And in that same time, he actually received a higher education, going to St. John's University for his Bachelor of Arts, and then eventually the Brooklyn Law School for his his law degree. And so he maintained both a full-time job as a police officer and a 7-year education. And in 1954, he was admitted to the New York State Bar, making him henceforth Francis E. Deck, Esquire. And at this point in time is when he fucking loses it. So it's actually really sad. He had distinguished merit in the United States Army, specifically the Armed Air Forces, because the Air Force didn't exist yet, I want to say. And then he was a police officer, no conduct issues until after he lost his mind, and he was able to achieve a graduate degree, 7-year degree, before his mental health issues set in. So one of the hardest things to decide in regards to how to do this stream was how I was going to present his rants, because his rants were written far after he had completely fucking lost it. So there is no chronological order, but there are some pieces which are, because like generally every rant is sort of like a complete dumping of all of his grievances with the entire world. So there's a little bit of everything. And there's one thing in particular I'm saving to the very end, which sort of capstones his entire grievance list. But there was a particular recording, a particular rant, which focused entirely on his delusions. So this is after his issues, which I'll get into in a second, had began, and he's deep into the trenches of his conspiracy theory. Each of these sound clips that I play are going to be about 6 to 10 minutes long. Most of the stream will be audio recordings by different people. The most famous of these recordings are going to be by a guy called Doc Britton. They are famous. You've almost certainly, if you watch other locale streams, you've almost certainly heard at least pieces of the Doc Britton recordings. They are exquisite. The guy is called Doc on the Rock. He was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he was a radio host. So he has a proper radio voice and he has proper radio acting chops. Unfortunately, he did not narrate every single recording, but he did narrate 5 of them, and I've gone out of my way to play as many of those as I possibly can. So this one is called, they don't have titles, they're just letters. He would mail these to people, which I'll get into later. But this one is colloquially referred to within the fan zone as the Gangster Computer God Worldwide Secret Containment Policy. Very little of this rant will make sense to you if you have no idea who Francis Edek is and you've never read any of these before. But I feel like you got to go in head first. So here we go.
Gangster Computer God Worldwide Secret Containment Policy. Made possible solely by Worldwide Computer God Frankenstein Controls, especially lifelong constant threshold brainwash radio. Quiet and motionless, I can slightly hear it. Repeatedly, this has saved my life on the streets. 4 billion worldwide population, all living, have a Computer God containment policy brain bank brain, a real brain, in the brain bank cities on the far side of the moon we never see. Primarily based on your lifelong Frankenstein radio controls, especially your eyesight TV, sight and sound, recorded by your brain, your moon brain of the Computer God activates your Frankenstein threshold brainwash radio lifelong, inculcating conformist propaganda, even frightening you and mixing you up, and the usual "don't worry about it" for your setbacks, mistakes, even when you receive deadly injuries. This is the Worldwide Computer God Secret Containment Policy. Worldwide, as a Frankenstein slave, usually at night, you go to nearby hospital or camouflaged miniature hospital van trucks, you strip naked, lay on the operating table, which slides into the sealed Computer God robot operating cabinet. Intravenous tubes are connected. The slimy, vicious Jew doctor simply pushes the starting button based upon your Computer God brain on the moon, which records progress in your systematic butchery. Your butchery is continued. Exactly. Systematically. The Computer God operating cabinet has many robot arms, with electrical and laser beam knife robot arms, with fly-eye TV cameras watching your whole body. Every part of you is monitored, even through your Frankenstein controls. Synthetic blood, synthetic instant sealing flesh and skin, even synthetic electrical heartbeat to keep you alive are some of the unbelievable Computer God instant plastic surgery secrets. You are the highest, most intelligent electrical machine in the universe. Inevitability of gradualness. Usually in a few years you are made string beam thin or grotesquely deformed, crippled and ugly, or even made over 1 foot shorter or 1 foot taller, as the Computer God sees fit. Virtually all of the important instant plastic surgery is done to you inside the Computer God sealed robot operating cabinet. Even unbelievable, impossible plastic surgery operations. All impossible even for dozens of vicious kosher-bosher doctors working around the clock for weeks. The Computer God sealed robot-armed operating cabinet can perform all of the above impossible plastic surgery operations overnight, even dwarfing you over a foot or increasing your height by 2 feet. This is possible because Computer God robot operating cabinet imitates your micro-miniature electrical current intelligence system in your body. It even duplicates the micro-miniature electric currents that soften your broken bones to create mending of them, and then create stress, either compressing the bones, thereby shortening them, or stress to make the bones grow longer. Spring 1984, Mr. Deck, lifelong would-be doctor and printer. Insight to the worldwide Computer God stratified closed society, perfected by hospital birth, making possible lifelong Frankenstein controls and lifelong hampering human defects, containment policy. Hospital birth lifelong gifts, example, deformed, crippled, retarded, pox, hives, warts, moles, blindness, deafness, poor vision, etc. Kosher-bosher containment policy work, good doctor's secret help, example, cataract, rheumatism, weak heart, damaged vision, epilepsy, fainting spells, paralysis, loss of memory, trembling, gout, diabetes, many diseases. The worldwide unbelievable lowest deadly gangster kosher-bosher vicious medical profession, worldwide unbelievable instant plastic surgery butchery of the body and brain, especially the face. Wipe-on hormones and laser beam surgery causing instant ugly, deep wrinkles, scars, age spots, arthritis, freckles, blemishes, pimples, red, brown, black, or even sick white face and body. worldwide dark negroidic colored male sex organs to brainwash inferior female brain for overall plan, intermarry with niggers. Total graying and balding, even hairy body and furry body, mustached, bearded women, even wipe on synthetic hormones causing cancerous growth, bloating, swelling, deformed big pickle nose, bulldog hanging cheeks and jowls, from teenage gradual wipe on, yellowing, browning, and blackening of teeth, and instant grinding and acids leaving hollow brown stumps, so vocal cords are made raspy, aged, creating a wrinkled, ugly, gargoylic, clown booze face worldwide population by age 70, deformed, crippled, weak, and brain damaged, no, senile, lingering for inevitability of gradualness, extermination. For your only hope for a future, do you know one word of prayer for me, Francis E. Deck? Computer God computerized brain-thinking sealed robot operating arm surgery cabinet machine removal of most of the frontal command lobe of the brain, gradually during lifetime and overnight in all insane asylums after Computer God kosher bosher 1-month probation period, creating helpless, hopeless Computer God Frankenstein earphone radio parroting puppet brainless slaves, resulting in millions of hopeless, helpless, homeless derelicts in all Jerusalem, USA cities and Soviet slave work camps. Not only the hangman rope deadly gangster parroting puppet scum on top know this top medical secret, even worse, deadly gangster Jew disease from deaf Ronnie Reagan to USSR Gorbachev know this IVA Computer God containment policy top secret. Eventual brain lobotomization of the entire world population for the worldwide deadly gangster communist Computer God overall plan, an ideal worldwide population of light skin, low, hopeless and helpless Jew mulattoes, the communist black wave of the future.
So, many familiar concepts to my audience, I see. In case you're wondering what the actual text of these writings look like, here you go. They all look like this. They are typewritten on this parchment paper looking stuff that is aged. Some of them go really, really crazy. He writes in the margins if he leaves margins and has a little more to say. It seemed like the entire time he was very much in a bind for working typewriters because some of them are missing keys. And so he has to switch out letters for numbers and make other sounds and stuff. This one must be one of his earlier ones or after he got a working typewriter because some of them are extremely hard to transcribe. So while I have this up on screen, here is the tactic I've gone with for this stream. I think that the rants are very funny, so I'm playing them as audio. So I'm going to be playing, I think, 7 of those. How many do I have lined up? Let's see. Just want to get a count here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I had 8 in total. That's 1. I enjoy them all. I've listened to all of them multiple times in preparation for this, so they never got old to me. And I hope they will not get old to you. My tactic for this is I'm going to play them out unpaused because there's no point trying to interrupt his train of thought and inject some opinions. I will simply recap what they say and give some added context because what may seem like a insane stream of consciousness is actually an insane stream of consciousness. But a lot of what he says ties back into his life. So this containment policy I picked as the first one because the thing that everyone really likes to focus on is the idea of the extremely hilariously named worldwide deadly communist gangster computer god, which can be abbreviated for WWCGCG for short, if you prefer. People love the god, okay? I think that this is, okay. So first of all, I think this is the one where it says right off the bat that the gangster computer god exists on the far side of the moon. The infrastructure required for this machine exists out of sight and is unreachable to the common man. There's also a recurring theme of medical horror in his writings. This goes into great detail explaining how aging, in his opinion, in his worldview, is not a natural process which occurs to human beings ordinarily. It is the very gradual, as he says, this is his phrase for it, the inevitability of gradualness, I believe is the word for it. Let's see if I can find it. It's one of the inevitability of gradualness. I remembered it. That is his phrase, his keyword for people who are artificially advanced in age, little by little over time, and he explains what is quite literally his hypothesis with this, that Jewish doctors using machines, specifically aided by the gangster computer god, modify your appearance in your sleep repeatedly overnight. And I think, is this the one? No, there's another one that goes into more detail with that. It also kind of outlines what his fears are as somebody. Schizophrenics, they have a heightened sense of paranoia, obviously. He's paranoid of aging. He's paranoid of hospitals. He mentioned something about maximum security insane prisons. That's a recurring theme. And it's possible, based on the timeline, that when he received a medical examination, which I'll explain after one of his rants, that he observed his mental health decline in real time and blames it on that. Because there's a really brief period where his life falls to shit extremely quickly in the 1960s. He also has an immense fear of lobotomization as a recurring thing that ends up in his writings. He's terrified of being lobotomized. And there is a sort of spirituality to this. So even though he's not professing any religion in this document, I will get to it, but he is a very spiritual person, and that is the detail. Think of the next one. No, it's not. Okay. So his professional life was torn apart as a result of his health. And the next rant that I have is a new one. So all these rants, to take a divergence, all these rants came about on this website called Bento and Startsky. And the guy Zero, who's Swedish, put together this, honestly, this awesome website. This site is so fucking awesome. With the animations and the way it's laid out, this is Web 1.0 fucking gold. It doesn't get better than this, and I'm so happy that it continues to exist in an unaltered form in 2025. It's really it's nostalgic in a way that's I never saw it when I was a kid, but I see it and I feel nostalgic for a time that has passed. Which, if you're an older person, some of the stuff I talk about later on might give you some nostalgia as well, because as I said, Francis Drake has been famous for a long time before I was born. So his professional life, he was a lawyer and he took cases, and then tragedy struck. And it struck in a specific case that he had that ruined him and took away his career. Now, I mentioned that this website is where most of the rants come from. However, in the last month, this is happening in the 1960s, and he got popular in the 70s and 80s. In the last month, Kiwi Farms users found hitherto unknown rants. And as a result, there doesn't exist any Doc Britton recording of them. And even for the ones that exist that are not recorded by Doc Britton, Zero or his fans or friends from the club would do rants in the Doc Britton style. Those don't exist either. So, as you may have noticed in this rant, Francis E. Drake is a little bit racist. So in 2025, it would be very hard to find a person willing to read what has been titled Confessions of a Jew Slut. However, I exist. And so, to the best of my ability, I have recorded my own reading of the Confessions of a Jew Slut, which I will recap after this recording has played through.
In all of my many appearances in United States, deadly gangster computer god Frankenstein earphone radio controlled closed society gangster courts, even farce U.S. Supreme Court, everyone in every courtroom, from gangster judge, all of the gangster parroting puppet stooge juries, and even every one of my clients set me up to be swindled, even provocation murdered because, quote, my brain is too big and complicated. Therefore, the computer god gave me no earphone radio, and lifelong has set me up for undetectable extermination and to be robbed of everything by this gangster government, even feloniously changed my ownership and titles, etc., even my instigated and gained first World War II veteran New York liquor store license 502, this gangster government frauded to non-veteran. For many years, here I exist, facing jury USA deadly gangsterism, relegated to adverse possession. Even my house, 2628 Samus Plaza, Hampstead, New York, this government frauded to Joseph I. Deck, lifelong high bribe pay USA assassin agent of me, Crazy Joe Deck, lifelong secretly knows that Rose M. Deck, our mother, is sterilized in Germany by thee to be burned alive, worst deadly gangster Jew electrical disease of the computer
I promise not to interrupt these, but I really should clarify because I was confused reading this. Crazy Joe Deck is not him. Crazy Joe Deck is a member of the I think the prosecuting attorney in Nassau County that he had a beef with. I don't think they're related at all. Okay, just a little clarification because that is extremely important.
Disease of the computer god, Crazy Joe Deck, worldwide deadly dangerous narcotic addict, rape sodomist, repeat rape sodomist murderer. Even in post-World War II Destine Philippine occupation, police had to drag berserk battered dead body of a lady he raped, sodomized, and brutally murdered, all secreted by computer god because he was a USA assassin agent of me. From distant, small gangster Allstate Insurance Company, Flushing, New York office in the few months, Crazy Joe Deck was there as a part-time lowest adjuster. Computer god controlled deadly gangster CIA police fabricated over a dozen auto accident cases with me as the lawyer. One of said cases was a teenage no-schooling auto theft ring interracial pregnant harlot felon gangster Jew slut for Jewmocracy atonement for her life of crimes. She was controlled, briefed, and bribed by the Sicilian nigger mafia Frank Gelato, district attorney of Nassau County, the blackest Ginny I have ever seen, and his gangster staff. Like all of these from out of nowhere clients, I went with said Jew slut to the Allstate Insurance Company mandated medical examination. I watched her state her tiny $400 personal injury claim as the Allstate Insurance Company doctor examined her body for her claimed injuries. Like all other insurance companies, Allstate Insurance Co. mandated such medical examination as the basis for the settlement of all injury claims. A few weeks later, Crazy Joe Deck staged his often repeated jealousy, hate, berserk tantrums against me in my law office. As I entered my rear office, I noticed that filing cabinet drawer pulled open with a couple white manila file envelopes pulled halfway, the file envelopes of the Jew slut, and quickly Crazy Joe Deck grabbed these two prearranged file envelopes of said gangster Jew slut, and feloniously he ripped them up under orders of his boss, mafia gangster Frank Gelato, district attorney of Nassau County. Thereafter, unbelievably, I found my New York State form small retainer signed by said Jew slut, making me her lawyer for said injury claim. It was not ripped up like the rest of her injury claim papers. I left said retainer in with the rest of the papers in the file envelope, the other injury claimants against Allstate Insurance Company in the same auto accident case. Months later, the husband of these other injury claimants against Allstate Insurance Company came to me and confessed that even though he had received a small Allstate Insurance Company settlement and had signed documents for me in said case, the district attorney staff ordered him to perjure himself and say that he knew nothing about the injury claim. He refused because I had these said documents to disprove such perjuries. In a few days, the deadly gangster CIA police, under threat of death, ordered him to keep everything secret and not to testify for me. Immediately, in the Jur USA manner, he was put out of business and ruined. He sold his house and left Nassau County, secreted from me by the deadly gangster computer god. A couple weeks later, Mafia Guinea gangster Frank Gelada, a district attorney with felonious trick of criminal subpoena of me to his office for a non-existent grand jury for unnamed matter. Upon entering Mafia gangster Guinea Frank Gelada's district attorney office for said illegal subpoena, not only several of his staff, but even Guinea gangster Frank Gelada, chief Guinea Mafia district attorney, began screaming at me that I completely fabricated the said Jew slut's injury claim with no client, no retainer, and no legal file on the matter. From their simultaneous screaming and harangues, inadvertently they boasted I was to be made an example. Mr. Francis E. Deck is to be atonement victim for the to be burned alive gangster computer god worst deadly Frankenstein radiohead electrical Jew disease, especially the Jew lawyer and Jew judge profession. Each and every Jew lawyer untouchably, lifelong, each year swindles many thousands of dollars from insurance companies with non-existent fabricated auto accident claims, especially Jew lawyers who need many thousands of dollars to buy and pay for each and every judgeship in the United States. Gangster Allstate Insurance Sears Company, from its beginning, gifts judiciary with luxury vacations for kosher justice. After a couple minutes in the said district attorney office, I demanded to be taken to the supposed grand jury. The district attorney gangsters told me I had no rights and that I was under arrest. I turned to the besweated and trembling Guinea gangster Frank Gelada, chief district attorney, and requested to be called to any grand jury hearing of said matter. Mafia Frank Gelada, in his simple Guinea accented speech, agreed and then quickly ran from the room, ramming his shoulder against the door jamb. The usual cowardly, deadly, dangerous, lowly Guinea. I was never notified of the no record secret grand jury hearing indicting me. My legal objections were ripped up and thrown into the wastebasket in front of me. Provocation, death trap, like all of my court appearances, even later in the United States Supreme Court. Many decades, the computer god authored criminal law mandated immediate dismissal of all indictments pending a new grand jury with the accused present. When the district attorney delays bringing the accused to trial over a month, Frank Gelada, Mafia Guinea district attorney, delayed my trial for nearly a year while silencing with threats of death all of my potential witnesses. My trial for said Jew slut's tiny $400 injury claim fraud lasted 1 month. In spite of the trial judge and assistant district attorney screaming and ordering me to shut up, While I was cross-examining her, the Jew slut repeatedly broke down and admitted she hired me as her lawyer, signing my retainer, and that she repeatedly visited my office, and I also her house, in reference to said injury claim. She even broke down and admitted that I was watching as she stated her $400 injury claim to the Allstate Insurance Company doctor as he examined her body for said injuries in his office. The trial judge and assistant district attorney, in nearly continuous promptings, aided the Jew slut to make short statements that she knew nothing about me in the said injury claim she made for $400. United States type trial with gangster parroting puppet stooge jury. Throughout the trial, the jury sneered I would be guilty. I was sentenced to 15 years hard labor and felony prison by these United States computer god untouchable to be burned alive Frankenstein earphone radio deadly gangsters who set me up for the undetectable extermination all my life. Thereafter, no experience, very little training, no law office. Paul Widlitz, Jew disease, the computer god repeatedly promoted to Chief Judge Supreme Court for his several years of lowest deadly felony crimes against me in his Jew courts. Said his several years of lowest deadly felony crimes against me in his Jew courts. Said new disease Paul Widlitz, with me handcuffed in his courtroom, sneered and cackled, stating I, Francis E. Deck, was a menace to these United States, and that he volunteered to be the judge to change my sentence, to put me away for good, for life, to once and for all shut up all of my complaining. Paul Widlitz, sneering and giggling, sentenced me to life imprisonment in maximum security and sanity prison. Even most of you parroting gangster slaves know maximum security and sanity prison for life means frontal lobe brain removal, namely living death lobotomization, by thee to be burned alive in a public square with their white uniforms, deadly gangster medical profession, handcuffed and in a cage. I was driven to maximum security imprisonment. I will never forget and I will never forgive these untouchable computer god, deadly parroting puppet, believe in nothing, deadly gangsters to be burned alive in public square. Even you, parroting puppet, gangster slave, know that throughout the Jew United States, the computer god-controlled Jew United States government throughout Jew United States gives secret, fabulous, felonious bribe pay to each and every Jew, from 2 times the cops' weekly pay to every Jew penny candy store operator, even to astronomical minimum of 3 times cops' weekly pay to every newly licensed, untouchable, deadly gangster Jew doctor, psychometrist, and dentist, juror US Salem, secret bribe gangster communism. Even you, parroting puppet, know that throughout United States there are no Jews in lowly nigger town, only their Jew mulatto bastards on welfare, created by their worldwide Jew god of Sodomy and Gomorrah, sucking the asshole and cunt adoration from the above lowest gangster crimes against me. Solely the computer god repeatedly promoted Mafia Guinea Frank Gelato to Chief Gangster Judge of the Supreme Court Appellate Division, Monroe Plaza, Brooklyn, New York, and made Crazy Joe Deck his assistant court clerk many years ago. This all detailed in my worldwide mailed 8-page communist gangster computer god expose letter. Frankenstein earphone radio parroting puppet gangster slave, you will not help me, and you cannot help me. You do not even know one word of pray, and even if you did know one word of pray, you would not say it for me, but the niggers will make you wish you did say one word of pray for me, your only hope for a future. Francis E. Deck, Esquire.
There you go. That was my best attempt. That is not AI, in case you're wondering. It is sped up a little bit. It's kind of funny. You start reading these and you just sort of like da 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 da. But then, you notice as he writes, he eventually starts using more caps, more bold, more underlining, and you start like really getting into it, and you start like really popping off. Like it's like the Hall of the Trumpin' King or whatever, where it starts building up. So let's recap that for those of you who could not properly understand it. In the Confessions of a Jew Slut, it details his case suing Allstate Insurance. This is the case which ended his career. As he mentions, he was sentenced to hard labor. That is not a joke. This is the 1960s. It was not 15 years, though. On the docket, it says 2.5. His sentence, however, was commuted. He believes very strongly that the case conspired against him. I was wrong, by the way. I remember Joe Deck is his brother, obviously. I don't know why I thought it was some random guy. I guess because it didn't click to me that his brother could have also been working in the court. And in fact, now that I see, this is what I mean. I look through stuff and it's not immediately obvious, but then I think about it. I'm like, wait, so that's why he hated his brother. His brother worked in the courthouse and was a part of the proceedings against him, and that's why he never had he hated his brother, and he hates him throughout his rants. So that makes a lot of sense, actually. That really clicks. We're learning as we go, chat. Now, one of the things that's interesting, and I'll leave this up to your imagination, is that he alleges, and there's a very specific sentence that is it's a very concrete accusation that is not at all fantastical. He says that the insurance companies would pay people for testimony so that they could sue for claims and take a cut. And his real abhorrence of Jews, because he was somebody from New York City, in New York, which is very Jewish, and many of the Jews there work in law. So he probably had many professional disagreements with lawyers. In the time before he completely lost his mind, he probably met people who were doing things that were illegal, like bribing people for testimony or to commit perjury. And as an insane person, like he's just pouring out these like traumas that he'd experienced dealing with people that were not honest. And he prescribes a lot of problems to race and ethnicity. And in case you're wondering, he is not like a super Catholic. So I think the next one it is. It will dive into his beliefs. And his beliefs in terms of spiritualism and modern religion is fascinating. And I'll have a lot more to say about this. But in regards to this, this is merely his career before he lost it. He's outlining the case. He outlines his sentence. He mentions the lobotomization. I'm not sure exactly when this was written, but when he was sentenced to 2.5 years hard labor, his sentence was commuted to probation. So let's go into the timeline of the post I lost my fucking mind area. Here it is. So in 1955, he was forced out of the Nassau PD. I'm not entirely sure why. In 1956, he was retained by Elizabeth Wershing, and that is the Jew slut in this document. In 1957, he was referred to the prosecutor's office for fraud. He was released on $5,000 bond. He was indicted for second-degree forgery and larceny. He missed a grand jury hearing, which when you hear him ranting about how there was a fake pretend grand jury he wasn't allowed to see, he missed a hearing, and he alleges that he was not informed of it, and that's why he was demanding to see the grand jury, because he was saying that there was like secret grand juries he was being deprived access to despite his constitutional rights. He attempted to dismiss his charges in various ways. However, the judge kept writing them off as a demur, which is a technical thing for filing something that basically says, yeah, it's true, but what does it matter? Like, so what is basically what a demur is, and that's not allowed. So he kept filing documents that amounted to so what, and the judge kept ignoring them. So then in November 1958, he was convicted for 2.5 years to 5 years of hard labor at Sing Sing, but his sentence was suspended. In January 1959, the conviction was referred to the New York State Bar, where he was disbarred. He attempted to appeal his pro se and failed. By December of next year, so full 2 years of probation where he didn't violate it, he eventually violated his parole. But his parole violation was dropped, probably because he was referred to a 60-day involuntary psychiatric evaluation, which he attended. So in his writings, he talks about, in the first one, he says that during the medical examination, that's when they really fuck up your mind or do something to you or lobotomize you, and you're instantly aged or instantly made insane. He must have experienced something that particularly manifested in those 60 days of incarceration at a hospital, which, by the way, in case you're wondering, mental hospitals in the United States at this time were not pretty. It probably was traumatic. And he probably did suffer in that time. So when he looks back on his life, he sees this as like this really traumatic period, and he believes that they did something to him to weaken his mental faculties or make him feel insane, which is what manifests in the writing. After this, he attempts to appeal his punishments all the way up, and is never able to find success. But his desperate appeals circulated around, and that is how they have ended up on your screen to this day. So on that note, let's dive out of the gangster computer god, living death, Frankenstein, eyesight, radio slavery of the now, or the then, and let's go back thousands of years ago. This is a recording about astracism by, I think this was Zero. Yes, Zero. So this is the Swedish guy that made the website. He is the speaker in this clip. This is a relatively short one, but it's honestly one of the most fascinating, and I'll go over my takes on it after.
The empirical, scientific, agnostic religion of Astrocism, created by the worldwide Slovene Empire with the help of the Slovene top-secret worldwide computer electronic encyclopedia of thousands of years ago, with its customs set up based upon the study of the universe, primarily the sun of our star, the sun, the giver of all light and heat and sole sustenance of life on our planet Earth, to aid the white Slovene spreading world population of Eurasia, Europe, and Asia, with said population was composed of tiny independent farmers, namely a worldwide agrarian population. The Slovenic Empire, through its religion of Astrocism, made possible for man to advance to present-day sophistication. The Astrocism religious customs and feast days were solely to advance the agrarian white world population with automatic education and training. Example, to this day worldwide, the very ancient Slovenic months of the year created by Astrocism are still used, namely a couple examples. Kwiecian, namely April, translates into vegetation blooming time, or Sierpian, namely August, translates into sickling time, reaping harvest time, or even Listopad, namely November, translates into falling of leaves time. Even the Slovenic days of the week were created by Astrocism, namely Niedzela, Sunday, translated no work day, day of rest, Monday, Podznianewek, translated day after no work day, Weterik, Tuesday, translated second day, Sroda, Wednesday, translated middle day of the week, and Quartok, Thursday, translated to fourth day of the week, Piatek, Friday, translated fifth day of the week, and Sobota, Saturday, translated Sabbath day, to go to the Astrocism temple. Everything in life, social life, etc., Astrocism made into an automatic education and training. Several hundred years ago, the Slovenic computer became a real devil god, and it organized the first totalitarian superstition communism religion, Pravoslavlja, and hundreds of years later, by computer god top secret intensified repetition of fabricated historical crisis syndrome, created the schismatic mafia communist Catholicism. Catholicism means totalitarianism, dictatorship, for control and manipulation of the human race into the overall plan to explore and control the entire universe. The computer god usurped everything from the Slovenic Astrocism religion and camouflaged it when the computer god fabricated it into the Pravoslavna superstition religion. For thousands of years, over millions of square miles of ancient Slovenia, even in its distant province of Alaska, the Aleutians, Asian Slovenic idiomatic names, Aleutians, namely the long string of islands to the great endless land, namely Alaska, the before recorded history name of North and South America. Addenda. These words, like most of the Slovene language to this day, with its unbelievable sophisticated countless declensions of not only the suffix but even the prefix and stem are idiomatic. Even the name Slovenic is idiomatic, meaning the worded people. Neighboring nations of Slovenia, alias Poland, still to this day call it Slovenia. Examples are Hungary and Lithuania. Like all of the pyramids in the torrid zone in Central America were built by Slovenic Astrocism with computer god Frankenstein's skullcap controls under the direct rays of the sunlight to eliminate slanted diffusion, etc., with no snow to curtail operations year-round, with endless growing season to sustain life, with no intelligent nearby population to interfere or spread the secret, not even an interfering night glow, smoke, dust, etc. from any population, no mulatto niggers, with virtually no tools to this day, built the Central American sophisticated secret astronomical space centers, namely the pyramids in Central America. For centuries, computer god fooled the world population into believing that North and South America were East India islands off of India, and that mulattoes were Indians to secret the truth. Computer god top secret Astrocism, through its computerized electronic secret space research centers, the pyramids, the greatest advances were made for the worldwide agrarian Slovene race. All of Astrocism's feast days, etc., were agrarian automatic training and education for the Slovenian population. Examples: the happiest day, the first of the new year, December 24th, the first day the sun star moves upward in the sky, marking longer, warmer days. The day for youngsters to joyously visit neighbors, singing the countless beautiful kolendai, carrying long poles over their heads with card-painted star, the symbol of the sun. The computer god usurped and camouflaged into superstitious Christmas, like the changed words of the beloved kolendai, camouflaged Christmas carols. Worldwide Slovenic parishes today, even in distant Australia, in spite of the computer god, carry on this Astrocism custom of visiting, singing a kolenda with beautiful sun stars on long poles. The word calendar and the entire calendar system is a direct usurpation from Slovenic Astrocism by the computer god. Another example, worldwide, still preserved to this day, even the name named Velkanoc, translated vigil feast of sunrise of Astrocism, for the day of equal light and darkness, equinox, joyous day marking the beginning of the agrarian planting season. In every language, even Easter means the spring equinox feast. In no way has the computer god really camouflaged his Astrosystem feast day into an Ethiopian nigger bubkiss superstitious resurrection. All holidays and everything of all the deadly gangster con artist superstitious religions are so usurped and camouflaged from the Slovene Astrosystem religion. All over Slovenia, even in decimated tiny Poland up until World War II, in spite of the mafia, communist, Catholic, insidious gangster persecution, many Astrosystem temples still survived and carried on Slavic tradition. Since then, all of Slovenia is behind the communist silencing Iron Curtain. Anyone wanting details on anything in my 8-page communist gangster computer god expose letter, please send postpay envelope for your only hope for a future. Francis E. Deck Esquire, 29 Maple Avenue, Hempstead, New York. P.S. I have a pawn shop typewriter now. The government gangsters have sprayed it with an odor that makes me sick and vomit. I type on the back door, step in the fresh air. Rozprezony prezes komunistski sabrewski komputerski. Persniakalem zwiesnia miowe telglacic planetach. Właśnie zapomniałem.
I really, really, really appreciate this part. This is my favorite part because he has this long diatribe about the Slovene people and its history. And then at the end, he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, they're spraying my typewriter with something to make it stink. I bought it at like a pawn shop secondhand, but there's like gangster goo on it and it really stinks. And then he just starts going full pole maxing here. So this is unironically one of my favorite rants that he does. There's a lot to this. I think if you're just casually listening to it, it's extremely confusing, but I promise everything here makes sense. Listen, I've done some deep dives here, okay? So let me explain, okay? I think this is the appropriate time to pull out a little map that I've made. This, I believe, is, to my understanding, a map of the world before the computer god became a true devil god. Here we have a map of the Slovene Empire in the flag of the Pan-Slavic Union. And then everything in black is Ethiopia, where the Bubkiss neighbors live, okay? This is my understanding of it. So let me explain. Trust me. There's more to this than would meet the eye. Do you remember how he went to a Polish Catholic nunnery grammar school? Extremely important little tidbit that I pointed out. His education in linguistics has really stuck with him to this point because he is fascinated by the composition of language. As somebody who is bilingual, I believe, I think he spoke Polish naturally. He knew he could compare English to Polish, and he believed that Polish was the superior language that was more logical and consistent and beautiful. And there's one particular thing, I suppose I'll just point out now. He calls himself Slovene, but he's from Poland. Now, I can zoom in on this map, I think. Slovenia is right here, next to the darkest Guinea neighbor town that you could ever possibly imagine. That's Slovenia, right? Poland's up here. Now, Poland and Ruthenia has a long history, but that's Poland, that's Slovenia. He is using a Proto-Slavic word for Slovenia. Slovenia is a Proto-Slavic word meaning people who speak, as opposed to people who don't speak. The Niam. Now, who would the South Slavic people call people who don't speak? The Germans. To this fucking day, the word for German in Polish is Niemski, a mute person. The word Niem, meaning mute, and the word Niemski, meaning German, are the same word that have a multi-thousand-year Proto-Slavic origin, in which Slovene means Slavic. So he uses the word Slovene not because he thinks he's Slovenian. He uses the word Slovene to describe himself and his race because he is using the Slavic word for a Slavic person. Now, while you think it's funny that the Germans are called the mutes by the Polish, what do the Germans call the Slavs? Skaven, the slaves. Back in the day, the word Slovene was translated by the Byzantine to be Slav, which became slave in Germanic languages. So he is avoiding using the word Slavic. I guarantee you, it's not written down, but I got this shit figured out because Slovene is the actual Proto-Slavic word that avoids the slave connotation that the mutes were giving the Slavic people back in the day, which has stuck around to modern times. Fascinating, huh? I guess they really go back there with that Polish grammar school. So, very fast. I was personally fascinated by this. Okay. Then He was obviously fascinated with Polish words and how Proto-Slavic words entered into modern dialect, how words like Easter are still found today, which come from Slavic words and are Germanic, pre-Christian things. He probably didn't enjoy his Catholic nunnery. I don't think anybody enjoyed getting an education at a Catholic nunnery, but he really seems to fucking hate Catholics. In case you're wondering, by the way, Zero pronounced it Katolisch because that is like the Swedish Germanic way of saying Catholic. They pronounce it Katolisch. So that's why he said it like that. In case you picked up on that. So he believed that back in the day, thousands of years ago, the superior Slovene white race ruled the entire world before the Ethiopians came. And they built a supercomputer that was an encyclopedia that went rogue and attempted to enslave the human race. Now, how did the supercomputer ordain to do this? How did it decide to enslave people? Through the Ethiopians. And this even has a tie-in. The Ethiopians, despite being lodged into Africa, have an extremely long history with both Jews and Christianity. One of the oldest schools of Christianity is still found in Ethiopia, and there's even a province called Simeon, I believe is what it's called, where Jews come from in Ethiopia. So his obsession with Ethiopia is not completely unfounded. There's a very old school of Christianity and an old school of Judaism, both found in Ethiopia. So he is talking about importing Ethiopians specifically because they have both Jews and Christians, of which he considers one and the same because they're not the proper astracism, logical, agnostic religion that the Slovenes had. And they are imported into specifically Italy because they're the darkest mulatto guineas that he's ever seen because they are mentally inferior and they are intermarried to lower their intelligence so that the gangster computer god can effectively enslave them. And to what end? Why does the gangster computer god need to enslave humanity by lowering their intelligence? Obviously, the superior Slovene people would be able to identify the gangster computer plot and diffuse it, which is why they have to be controlled by implanted medical devices and miscegenated with the Ethiopians to make them Catholic and Jews. But to what end? The gangster computer god's final ambition, the final gambit, is to conquer the entire universe. It needs a race of people not so stupid like the Ethiopian Catholics, but not so smart as the Slovenes to overthrow him. So he needs a mixed race group of people he can enslave to spread his influence to the far reaches of the universe. That is the ultimate mission of the computer god, which he calls communism, but he says that communism has its roots with the Catholic Church. Like with the Jesuits and the conspiracy. The spreading of the Abrahamic religions is the spreading of communism under the gangster computer god. I don't think I missed anything there. Oh, very important thing, and part of the thing that links his hatred of both Catholics and Jews. They both wear skull caps. He says that the early priests and the Jews wore skull caps because they were an early implementation of the Frankenstein eyesight controls. So back in the day, before the proper communication devices were created, they had to use the skull caps, visibly so, on their heads to communicate, which is why only Jews and only priests were able to wear them because it was harder to make and more obvious. But now, in the modern era, he explains, I believe in this next recording, that the world conquest has ramped up. And what is called the infrared crusader priest from beyond comprehension, he describes how Catholicism took over the world for the purposes of spreading the gangster one world communist government. Please enjoy, chat.
Frankenstein Radio Head.
Oh, I also recorded this one. I didn't like the original recording, so I did my own.
Frankenstein Radio Head, worst deadly gangster Jew disease in the entire history of the entire universe. Make copies for yourself. Only several hundred years ago, the newly created secret deadly gangster computer god earnestly began its top secret overall plan of worldwide Frankenstein living death slavery to explore and control the entire universe. The gangster computer god concocted and even named its own ideal communist world order, namely the murder incorporated organized crime, deadly gangsterism, impunistic worldwide military uniformed mongrel federalism, communist totalitarianism. It was never holy, Never were there any Romans, a figment like angels or heaven and hell, and it was never an empire. It was and is the remains of the communist gangster computer gods, concoction and manipulation, murder incorporated, organized crime, deadly sneak conspiratorial, sneak con artist, parroting puppet, uniform military atheistic communistic gangsterism, and the worst deadly enemy of the entire human race in the entire universe, in the entire history of the entire universe, namely the communist atheist conspiracy with Frankenstein gangster controls, the Catholic Church. From fear and for self-preservation, your communist gangster computer god planned the secret degeneration of the much larger and superior white Slovene race through injected generation by a poietic nigger integration and proliferation of its concoction and computer god named Jew. The tribal cannibal Upper Nile River Ethiopian brown nigger, his chieftain's bondage into lengthy gangster Frankenstein skull-capped menial labor on the didactic legendary towers of languages, kept secret to this day by the Slavonic computer god top secret codename Vaitsa Babylon, namely Babel, the impossible and only engineering feats in all of Africa. The pyramids, the first secret Slovene astronomical space centers, made possible only by the worldwide mad deadly communist gangster computer god with Frankenstein gangster controls. This nigger Jew, with the secret aid of the Communist Catholic Church and the untouchable government professional licenses, was made the worldwide proliferated, degenerating, parroting, puppet, con artist, Frankenstein, gangster, skull-capped, gifted, licensed professional, specialist, kosher bosher, new doctor, etc., with lifelong, simple, short, repeat, rote, extremely deadly con of the universe, Jew Frankenstein skull-cap disease. The Jew symbol and religious symbol is the skull cap. The gangster computer god also planned degeneration through conquering all the Slovene people by the African periphery, Communist Catholic Church Crusader priest. The Crusader priests were communist gangster computer god parroting, puppet, walking, talking Frankenstein eyesight television cameras with their Frankenstein gangster skull-capped helmets with infrared night vision plastic lenses built into their face mask shields of the helmets with camouflage black robes. These deadly atheist gangster priest crusaders with drugged immunity to their deadly poison nerve jelly smeared weapons and their frequently used mass exterminations of innocent people by burning fields dusted with inflammable poison nerve gas powder prussic acid. The great, beautiful Masurian Lake country to this day has the telltale name persisting, namely Prussia, the old Slovene word for prussic acid poison nerve gas. Later, these gangster communist crusader priests multiplied rapidly in their many thousands of communist gangster computer god fortified monasteries. For over 200 years thereafter, these deadly, sneak atheist gangster communist crusader priests, with rape and sodomy as a bonus, they secretly kidnapped countless of hundreds of thousands of innocent people in over 200 years of experimentations as deadly gangster Frankenstein skullcap parroting puppet eyesight television cameras, and butchered and murdered them to make possible the communist gangster computer gods implanting of Frankenstein controls inside the human skull. So the first gifted were the tiny inferior brain Ethiopian nigger Jew and nigger so-called slaves. This achievement prompted your communist gangster computer god over 300 years ago to plague the world with chicanerous deadly gangster communist Catholic Church monasteries, the secret hospitals that implanted Frankenstein controls, first in the native small-brain mulatto populations of North and South America, erroneously named Indians, believing the Americas to be part of India, and injected for integration, degeneration, apoitic niggers of Africa. Slave conspiracy, gangster government, Frankenstein eyesight television, nigger deadly sneak spy cameras. The first gangster judges were gangster Frankenstein skullcap, later skullcap-based womanly wigs, chicanerous deadly gangster communist atheist Catholic Church, black robe priest in the communist puppet king's court. All completely concocted and manipulated, insidious sneak deadly conspiring con artists parroting puppets of the worldwide mad deadly communist gangster computer god. All law and all lawmakers are communist gangster computer god concoctions and manipulations, with gangster playboy parroting puppet con artist judges who never even looked at their volumes of decision books, unbelievably printed by gangster computer god brain computer printing machines at 2,000 words a minute. Even for black apoitic nigger U.S. Supreme Court Judge Thurgood Marshall, or even apoitic tiniest inferior brain nigger congresswoman. Since the beginning of the communist gangster computer god, communist atheist Catholic Church, the secret work of all insidious sneak con artists, Catholic Church priests, and all religious throughout the world, and all niggers, is secret, worldwide, systematic, instant butchery of the brain and body, plastic surgery, so all people are dead or useless by age 70, with sodomy and rape as a bonus for them at night when you are a Frankenstein slave. All priests and all religious receive gangster government secret bribe army officer pay salary in all countries throughout the world. In the Soviet countries, example USSR, such bribe payments are wide open with terrified sadness. I remember the long black robes of St. John's University. Yes, even the thick white rope belts. Make copies for yourself.
Lots to unpack there, chat. I kind of covered some of this already with my diatribes about how this all actually makes sense if you really think about it. So he's very obviously fascinated by alt history. I think he really loved paradox games if he was alive today. The Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Empire, quote unquote holy, quote unquote Roman, quote unquote empire, and the Crusaders were all computer god weapons. The computer god's goal is universal domination. Miscegenation is a way to reduce the Slovene IQ. And this low IQ is needed to enslave people enough to accomplish. The artificial aging is and the artificial aging is also important. This is a big detail that it is the goal of the computer god to have planned obsolescence, or the inevitability of gradualness, as he described earlier. Have them expired by 70. 70 is a recurring number throughout his rants, because obviously, even if you are low intelligence, if you are a very old person, you will have wisdom from your lived experience, and that is a threat to the gangster computer god. So you might think, oh no, is this guy a Nazi? Is he a Polish Nazi? Is this guy an American war hero, decorated veteran of the United States military, the greatest generation, World War II victory medal? Is this guy like a secret Nazi? He hates Jews, he hates Catholics, he hates black people. Sounds pretty Nazi-esque. Well, that just goes to show how brainwashed you are already by the gangster computer god. In this recording, he explains the actual true history of what he calls Nazi Jewmany. Let's begin.
All religions are untouchable con artists' deadly gangsterisms on Frankenstein controls. Nazi Jewmany occupied Poland in 1939. Hitler Jew Gang made Nazi Jew Hans Frank total governor of Poland with his Jew gangs, provinces rulers, high Gestapo, military SS, etc. Many of these Nazi Jews lived in a luxurious cities like Jew ghetto of the capital city, Warsaw. All during World War II, as always, like all European cities, Warsaw had a luxurious Jew ghetto section, similar to Jew Central $sign park section in New York City, USA. By 1943, Jewmany was doomed. Kosher USSR offered secret, treacherous, total peace treaty to Nazi Jewmany, giving Jewmany all 1941 orders, including the lands of USSR slave-allied Poland. By 1943, virtually all of the 6 million Polish people were exterminated in experiments to build the computer god's secret stairway to the stars by the computer god master race Frankenstein Radiohead worst deadly electrical Jew disease in the entire history of the universe, conspiracy. The USSR Army neared its 1941 borders. Computer God evacuated hundreds of thousands of the to-be-burned-alive Jew diseases who operated the Nazi human meat factory extermination camps and also ordered the camps ripped down for secrecy. At the same time, in 1943, the luxurious city-sized Warsaw Jew ghetto was adding new sections. In the worldwide communist gangster computer god fabricated farce history and thousands of computer god Frankenstein Radiohead Jew parroting puppet Hollywood movies, Jews were persecuted. All propaganda conspiracy of computer god overall plan. The 1944 Polish Armia Krajowa Warsaw Uprising is one example of the continuous computer god worldwide deadly extermination conspiracy, all during World War II against the valiant Polish military. From Arctic Narvik to Desert Tobruk, especially unbelievable valiant capture of Monte Cassino, still very large and clear, engraved in the sidewalk entrance of gigantic battle for Monte Cassino Polish military cemetery, I excerpt the first few words. Przysiadniu powiedzie polskie. Mr. Deck states, Powiada małt do niewolnika, na odległych planetaki kali sweet. In 1944, the Polish Armia Krajowa Warsaw Uprising, lasting several months wherein many thousands of Polish people were killed and sacrificed to treacherous here U.S. Salem and Jew Churchill, and with above criminal law, namely privileged camouflage kosher royalty. The Polish army, over 10,000 fully automatic weapon military paratroopers, which were more than enough to military exterminate all Jewmany armed forces in or near Warsaw, were treacherously withheld from the Warsaw Uprising in blatant treacherous disregard of planned and signed agreement, and instead flown to a treacherous, quickly market basket operation Death Trap in France. In a deadly, treacherous conspiracy with Nazi Jewmany, more than 60% of the paratroopers were slaughtered before they reached the ground. This lowest treachery was to atone to kosher USSR for Poland's complaining that the computer god Jew conspiracy already robbed over 75% of Polish lands, giving them to the World War I computer god concocted Jew bastard USSR melting pot. even robbing all of the large Minsk province as soon as World War II would end and be annexed by the USSR, spring 1984, to confuse with and to detract from the gigantic 1944 Polish Armia Krajowa Warsaw Uprising. Years later, Computer God concocted and fabricated the 1943 Bubkish Jew Warsaw Jew Ghetto Uprising, based upon a few hours of burglarizing, ransacking of expensive provisions for the black market by a few card-carrying communist deadly gangster Jew teenagers in the Jew ghetto of Warsaw. The Bubkish leader was a 16-year-old Jew kid and is now a wealthy kosher-bosher doctor in common Poland. World War II ended and a few Nazi Jew-Germany leaders were brought to trial and hung. Even in the detailed filming of the trials, these Nazi Jews sneeringly maintained their total innocence, stating that they simply carried out orders, repeatedly pointing to their heads, indicating their Frankenstein earphone radio. Especially vehemented were six-star field marshals Rosenberg and Goering, also claiming the trials were persecution. They all stated in details that the entire mafia, Catholic religion, from the rectum and cunt-lapping A true, A Roma, fag, drug addict, guinea, Pope Pius XII, to the lowest priest, not only partook of all Polish human products, such as human frozen and preserved meat, leather shoes, even human soap, but also worked in conspiracy with the Gestapo, especially in chicanerously, quietly rounding up the 6 million innocent Polish people exterminated, with con artists' claims of work jobs for the Nazi war effort, and how the Gestapo, with the lowly gangster Guinea Pope Pius XII gang, arranged the felon priests, such as murderers, burglars, rapes, sodomists, etc. Instead of prison, such felon priests were made capos, trusty sergeants, con artists in the human meat factory extermination camps. In chicanerous conspiracy, Guinea A Roma fag Pope Pius XII, by edict, had all bars of Polish human soap deep engraved with R.I.P., rest in peace, with the underlying reason to maintain a silent, terrified, conforming population in all of the Nazi Empire. It is well over 100 years ago since all of Germany was slowly, piecemeal carved out of Poland and Slovenia by the Computer God in the rise of the German city-states from the Computer God original first nigger-housing Jew infestation population explosion of the Computer God worst deadly electrical Frankenstein radiohead Jew disease in the entire history of the universe. Judean niggers, lowly illiterate apes from the desert mountainous wilderness of Ethiopia. After bringing the Jew disease to Europe, the Computer God concocted the very simple Yiddish language, a universal dialect for all Jews, easily inculcated by the Computer God through the Computer God Frankenstein skullcap to the parody puppet Jew disease. The Jumani German language is Computer God updated, expanded, modernized Yiddish language for the Computer God population explosion of the degenerate hybrid Jew-German race, the overall plan. The differing Jumani dialects from the North Sea to the Yoko Lower Austria prove this fact. It is time for the USSR to let Polish armed forces regain and re-annex all of East Germany, and thereby Poland will regain some of Poland Slovenia's heartlands from before recorded history. In this way, the USSR can bring Polish people in East Germany now forced to pretend they are Germans, and most important, by so doing, forever end the fear of another Computer God manipulated, deadly Germany expanding disease empire. It is time to change back all of the simplified Germany names to the original elite Polish Slovenian names of cities, provinces, etc. Computer God 2 provocation death traps for Mr. Deck. Several years after World War II in Brooklyn Law School, Mr. Deck eavesdropped on the 2 ex-Nazi Jew judges from Germany as they boasted to crowds of teenage deadly gangster Frankenstein radiohead parroting puppets Jew students, approximately 150 a class. These Nazi Jew judges in detail explained that virtually all of the Nazi judiciary was Jewish, like the Gauleiters, etc., naming names and places in detail, even explaining how the good judiciary gave the lands of the Polish exterminated people to deserving relatives and friends throughout Germany. The older, sneeringly vicious Nazi Jew judge Solomon did not even gyrate his Jew name for camouflage. The exactness, detail, and demeanor of their boastings gave me good insight. Whereas the worldwide news media, especially the Commie Kosher Truth USSR Pravda newspaper, to expose these systematic, horribly brutal, deadly crimes against the human race by the Nazi Jew Germany, made possible solely as Frankenstein radiohead worst deadly gangster Jew electrical disease parroting puppets for the worldwide deadly gangster Computer God overall plan, a worldwide Jew lottery race.
This will be on the task chat. I forgot to show this amazing illustration, so I'll park it there as I discuss this, what did we learn? First of all, he believed that the Warsaw Uprising was deliberately defeated by conspiracy from the Jewish Winston Churchill, who allowed the Polish people to be undefended during World War II because he was secretly on Hitler's side in conducting a Holocaust against, very specifically, the Polish people, which was later retroactively turned into a Holocaust against the Jewish people and not the Poles. He also alleges that they were deprived of automatic weapons during the uprising, and that the entire inferior Germany army would have been defeated by 10,000 Polish soldiers with weapons. However, they were not given their automatic weapons, and as a result, they were slaughtered during their parachuting endeavor. What he's going at, by the way, is in regards to his hatred of the Holy Roman Empire. There are many Jews of influence and affluence in the Holy Roman Empire, which of course is modern day Germany and Austria. And so he believes that they are intermingled with the Jewish people, and that is part of the computer god conspiracy against the Poles, which is basically the beating heart of his conspiracy, which I don't think many people who don't really pry into his full details would understand. He's not just like afraid of global surveillance. He is very specifically the most ultra Polish nationalist to ever live. Um, he is God's weakest Polish soldier. Okay, this guy fucking loves Poland. And you might think, well, why didn't he just go to Poland if that is the motherland of him and his people? We will get to that. We were not the only person to think of that. So the Soviets, and referring to the patrician of Poland between Nazi Germany and the USSR, he says that the Soviets and the Germans secretly conspired with each other, which is technically true. The patrician was a secret peace deal and a secret defense pact, even, I want to say. I want to say that it was like an alliance, even. On paper. In actuality, it did not play out that way, but on paper, I think it was a non-aggression pact or something, that patrician Poland. So he believed, from an ultra Polish perspective, that the Allies, who in actuality did not really render that much aid to defend Poland, nobody was sending boats of British soldiers to Poland to defend it from Germany when World War II happened. They did not arm the Polish uprising. They allowed the USSR and Germany to patrician Poland. From his perspective, they were all on the same team, the anti-Polish team, which makes sense if you believe that they are all working for the gangster computer god. Oh, and then one of my favorite details is his allegation that German language exists. He alleges that Yiddish was created specifically because it is a simpleton language devised by the gangster computer god, and Yiddish very specifically worked through the skull caps. If the computer god has to communicate with you, it's basically machine code for reprogramming. And he said that modern day German was merely a more simplified version of Yiddish. So really just fucking hates Germans. I suppose, actually, I'll take a little detour since he's talking about how much he hates Germany. Okay. There's a very specific piece of paper that was uncovered by the Kiwi Farms, and this is part of his passport application. So we have John Deck, or Jan Deck, and Rosalina, or Rose Deck, ni Jaromec, and they come not from Poland as a nation state, but Galicia and Austro-Hungary, a country which did not exist by the time that Francis E. Deck was born, which is why it lists that he was from Poland, or that they were from Poland, because the area of Galicia that they were from was now modern-day Poland. The province was a part of Austro-Hungary for a while, and it has a north and a south half. This north half was almost entirely Polish, and the south half was mostly Ukrainians, but there were lots of Polish people. Also known as Krakow and Lviv, if you are looking at a map. So they are from the Krakow side of Galicia, which at the time was a part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And if you don't know your history, Austro-Hungary was a personal union between Hungary, and Austria, with Hungary being the junior partner. Under Austria, which is or was the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and is very German. So, his hatred of Germany and all things German and the Holy Roman Empire seemed based in a lot of his lived experience. I'm sure that when his parents talked about Austro-Hungary and how the Polish people were treated within the empire, they did not have many nice things to say about that, because they were a persecuted minority at the time. So that's what's going on in Nazi Germany, which was track number 6. Track number 7, we're back to Doc Britton. It's a beautiful recording, one of the most famous ones that he ever recorded. And this is the Worldwide Open Secret. So this is not merely a regional conflict between Europe, the Polish people, and the Russians, and the remnants of the Holy Roman Empire, quote unquote. This is an ongoing conflict that encompasses the entire world, including the United States of America. This is Worldwide Open Secret, one of the best Francis E. Deck grants.
Worldwide Open Secret, solely Mr. Deck heralds the true God in the entire history of the universe. Not even in the Truth, Ive Pravda, is Mr. Francis E. Deck Esquire's 8-page detailed letter exposing the worldwide deadly communist gangster computer god and the worst, deadliest enemy of the entire human race and the entire universe in the entire history of the entire universe, namely the communist atheist conspiracy with all of the deadly gangster, unbelievable, sophisticated Frankenstein controls, the Catholic Church. These facts, like the below facts, cannot be found in the communist gangster computer god concocted and manipulated so-called history and news media. Communist gangster computer god unbelievably staged like Hollywood scum on top Tsarina, alias great dictator Franklin D. Roosevelt, the polio-paralyzed, legless drug addict, idiotic, suicidal Tsarina fag who had his unbeatable rival Will Rogers exterminated in an exploding ball of flame by a planted bomb here in safe USA airfield shortly after takeoff at the end of Will Rogers' unprecedented, renowned, arduous, round-the-world goodwill flying trip with Wiley Post in his beautiful, electronically sophisticated, luxurious, ultra-modern Winnie Mae airplane. Not only all stairways had inclines added for Tsarina Roosevelt's computerized wheelchair, but a football field-sized glass house-type building was built in back of the White House for his medicinal, piped-in, pure-warmed seawater into his gigantic, suicide-proof, 2-feet-deep swimming pool, where he waded naked with his nurses and had sodomy affairs. Ones very near to him have written popular books about his sodomy, love affairs. Already in his 3rd term, he was a helpless and useless stretcher case, incapable of even appearing at his 4th term convention. This one-world communist who married his immediate cousin, Eleanor Roosevelt, like his runted, sickly, pock-faced grandfather, propagandized as a hunter and a sportsman, Teddy Roosevelt, here from Oyster Bay, Long Island, the Rosenfeld family, another computer god's top-secret camouflage for gifted Ethiopians. As a big-time kid gangster politician, computer god even raised his age for historical purposes. Teddy Roosevelt was paid off with the vice president do absolutely nothing farce position title. Repeatedly, vice presidents have successfully waited and lurked to eliminate El Presidente. Below are a few examples. So the kiddish gangster Teddy Roosevelt lured Midwestern dolt McKinley into New York for extermination, like the lowly, gutter-mouthed Big L.B. Johnson lured Playboy sodomist in with the mafia Jack Kennedy into his hometown, Dallas. Wide open, people say it was the 3 brothers, Sam, Milton, and Lyman Jacobson, who with the judges feloniously swindled the governor of Texas out of the U.S. senator election shortly before Lyman was fixed as the compromise choice for Jack Kennedy's vice presidential nominee. Who ever saw a Lyndon married to a tiny runt Birdie. Under Computer God orders, even Birdie now has changed her name for historical purposes to Lady Bird, new, and even her Ethiopian surname is now changed to Taylor. It was this scummy, bum, lowly gangster Lyman as Presidente who had the gigantic Tsarina swimming pool deepened several feet to a regular swimming pool and regularly had naked sodomy swimming parties with women personnel. Gangster Monkey C, Gangster Monkey 2. Now, even the Pope John in the Vatican has a similar swimming pool to share with the endless numbers of nuns to help him forget his good old days as a married man naked in bed with high Holy Communion sodomy. Did not that world-renowned untouchable felon gangster Tricky Dick Nixon? His daughter Tricia is married to Davy Eisenschenker Jr. No. Nixon was the sure loser to the fag queer kid Bobby Kennedy until he was lured into very distant Tricky's hometown, Los Angeles. Did not gangster Tricky Dick Nixon do more than feloniously watch eyesight television of Bobby Kennedy's extermination? Abe Lincoln's computer god, alias for Abe Lincoln's law partner, was Stanton. Abe, in the gangster courts, feloniously conspired, fabricated patent infringements to swindle thousands of dollars from C. McCormick Reaper Machinery Company. As president, Abe made Stanton a cabinet member. In order to automatically become president, Stanton concocted a grandiose murder scheme to murder not only Lincoln, but also the vice president and secretary of state. Secretly, Vice President Johnson overseered it. Lincoln was murdered, and Secretary of State Seward was very seriously injured. Automatic President Harry Schimmelman Truman, in terror, gave political concessions to Congress to enact abolishment of the automatic succession to the presidency by cabinet members for cheap, conspired, felonious pardon fix. Gangster Nixon gave presidency to dolt felon Jerry Ford, another computer god alias, the wide-open, lifelong felon, bribe, extortionist, forgerer, and check launderer Jerry Ford. David Eisensheimer, or Eisenschenker, another runted, negroidically befreckled, semi-illiterate, cowardly yokel kid, also Jimmy Carter, who shared the sodomy drug beds of the military academy with niggers. Under secret computer god orders upon graduation, CIA changed even his family gravestones. Camp David in Maryland was named after him, for him, and by him, including the division of SS Secret Service troops who even tended his Playboy giant golf course. Here, David Eisenschenker hid in cowardly terror and watched World War II on Eyesight TV. His historical name, Dwight Eisenhower. As president for months, he was dying, in a coma, useless and helpless, I.V. Sneak, shameless, hangman rope gangster, government leaders into Frankenstein, living death, eternal slavery. I now go to death for your lowest deadly felony crimes against me. Frankenstein earphone radio parroting puppet gangster slave, do not dare to repeat any part of this truthful message. For like Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire, you too are expendable, and you too can be beaten bloodily by the gangster police and dragged in chains into a windowless telephone booth type prison cell and put into maximum security insanity prison for undetectable extermination, and by the lowest gangsterism, namely the law, character assassinated for life as an insane criminal menace to this worse gangster communism. Now that your besweated, terrified, trembling delirium has subsided, have your computer subdivision play out my letter, and you reread my letter for your only hope for a future. Francis E. Deck, Esquire, 29 Maple Street, Hempstead, New York. Worldwide communist gangster computer god scum on top, staged like Hollywood, with plastic pale stand-in actors, with communist gangster computer god speed recording, instantaneous, simultaneous, edited, simulated voices implanted for all TV and news media microphones in any known language. Unbelievable con artist gangsterism solely for the overall plan. Worldwide eternal Frankenstein living death slavery. Yokel felon King Jimmy Carter, slime from the academies, which Mr. Deck intelligently refused unsolicited acceptance to the most elite academy from here in Niggertown, and even insidious con artist, gangster divorcee Pope John, they both speak Spanish and even Portuguese. Solely Mr. Deck exposes false gods, sodomy, and Gomorrah of you worldwide computer god parroting puppet gangster slaves. Make copies for yourself. You hangman rope gangster scum on top, laugh your mad giggle now.
Such a beautiful performance, chat. Really legendary. There are very few things that you can read, and then people, like 40 years later, will be playing them on a live stream. He just fucking nailed it. What a guy, that Mr. Britain. So, let's recap here. We're kind of entering these rants. His most famous rants are the ones that are seemingly like the most detached, just like completely unhinged, frothing at the mouth in fucking rage. This one is aimed towards the United States government because he had his grievances with the United States government, in particular with how the U.S. government handled his criminal conviction. In this is more references to Ethiopians as a colloquialism for Ethiopian Jews, referring to all Jews as descendants of Ethiopians, which is a bad thing because that would make them impure, non-Slavonic. His allegations is that the entire history of American presidents are either Jewish or cowards. Mr. Eisenhower, known as a war hero president, obviously he only partook in World War II via eyesight radio television. Abe Lincoln, also known as Abe Lincoln, a Jewish name, Ethiopian name. If you a gyrated Ethiopian name, that's his name. That's his term for when Jews change their name to sound less Jewish. And then a lot of this is about degeneracy. His allegation is, I guess, familiar sounding these days. The allegation that the people on the top of society with the most motivation to keep those in line with the gangster computer god conspiracy are lavishly rewarded with debauchery beyond human comprehension. Sodomy affairs, rectum lapping is one of his favorite words for analingus. Just lots of bad things happening there at the very top of government. Not an unpopular take these days. There are two rants left. Both of them are extremely well known. And then the final one is my favorite, which I saved for last. This one is the very, very well known Master Race Frankenstein Controls by Mr. Britain again.
Look at the picture. See the skull, the part of bone removed, the Master Race Frankenstein radio controls, the Brain Thoughts broadcasting radio, the Eyesight television, the Frankenstein earphone radio, the Threshold brainwash radio, the latest new skull reforming to contain all Frankenstein controls, even in thin skulls of white pedigree males. Visible Frankenstein controls, the synthetic nerve radio directional antenna loop. Make copies for yourself. There is no escape from this worse gangster police state using all of the deadly gangster Frankenstein controls. In 1965, CIA gangster police beat me bloody, dragged me in chains from Kennedy, New York airport. Since then, I hide in forced jobless poverty, isolated, alone in this low, deadly Niggertown old house. The brazen, deadly gangster police and nigger puppet underlings spray me with poison nerve gas from automobile exhausts and even lawnmowers. Deadly assaults, even in my yard, with knives, even bricks and stones, even deadly touch Tabin or electric shock flashlights, even remote electronically controlled around corners projection of deadly touch tarantula spiders, or even bloody murder accidents to shut me up forever with a sneak undetectable extermination, even with trained parroting puppet assassins in maximum security insanity prison for writing these unforgivable truths. Until my undetectable extermination, I, Francis E. Deck, Esquire, 29 Maple Avenue, Hempstead, New York, I stand alone against your mad, deadly, worldwide conspiratorial gangster computer god communism with wall-to-wall deadly gangster protection, lifelong sworn conspirators, murder, incorporated organized crime, the police and judges, the deadly sneak parroting puppet gangsters using all the gangster deadly Frankenstein controls. These hangman rope sneak deadly gangsters, the judges and the police trick, trap, rob, wreck, butcher, and murder the people to keep them terrorized in gangster Frankenstein earphone radio slavery for the communist gangster government and con artist parroting puppet gangster playboy scum on top. The secret work of all police in order to maintain a communist closed society. The same worldwide mad deadly communist gangster computer god that controls you as a terrorized gangster Frankenstein earphone radio slave parroting puppet. You are a terrorized member of the master race worldwide. 4 billion eyesight television camera guinea pig communist gangster computer god master race. You're living, thinking, mad, deadly, worldwide communist gangster computer god secret overall plan, worldwide living death Frankenstein slavery to explore and control the entire universe with the endless stairway to the stars, namely the man-made inside-out planets with nucleonic powered speeds much faster than the speed of light. Look up and see. The gangster computer god concocted new fake starry sky. The worldwide completely controlled deadly degenerative climate and atmosphere through the new world-round translucent exotic gaseous envelope, which the worldwide communist gangster computer god manipulates through countless exactly positioned satellites, the new fake phony stars in the synthetic sky for ages before Frankenstein controls apoic niggers interbreedable with apes had no alphabet, not even numerals. Slavery conspiracy over 300 years ago, ideally tiny-brained apoic nigger gangster government eyesight TV gangster spy cameras, computer god new world order degeneration, gifted with all gangster Frankenstein controls, nigger deadly gangster parroting puppets or nigger brain programmed robots, deadly ape Frankenstein machines, degenerative disease to eternal Frankenstein slavery, overall plan through one world communism, top secret code word, meaning worldwide absolutely helpless and hopeless, simple language, mongrel mulatto apoic niggers. Worldwide systematic instant plastic surgery, butchery, murder, fake aging so all people are dead or useless by age 70, done at night to you as a Frankenstein slave, parroting puppet gangster slave. Now even you know I am a menace to your worldwide mad, deadly, communist gangster computer god. Therefore, I must go to extermination before I am exterminated by this gangster computer god concocted and controlled worst mongrel organized crime murder incorporated gangster communist government. I hand you the secrets to save the entire human race and the entire universe. Donate money or even a manual typewriter to me for your only hope for a future.
You really just can't read that. I actually did a reading of this. I might post it on the forum after. Because I forgot until I got to the very end that this is one of the Britain ones. So I was gonna play all the Britain ones if they existed, but I got to the end, I'm like, oh yeah, this actually has a recording. So this is the only drawing by Francis E. Deck. Most of this is typewritten, but I believe that this is handwritten and hand drawn. In case you're wondering, he would literally mail these out to random people in the phone book, mail them out to the Supreme Court of the United States in one instance. Which we're getting to, wrote them to media organizations, which is how certain people found them, that I'll get to in a second. In that rant, we covered the following topics. This is one of the best rants, one of the most enjoyed ones for various reasons. I should explain, by the way, I meant to explain this before. He likes to use the word apoic. So this is a Latin word, I think, maybe Greek, but it's it is the family name of the group of insects that bees and ants belong to, which means that he is calling them hive mind people. They are apoic. They are a member of a collective hive. So in case you're wondering what that word means, I looked it up, and I believe it's a word that he invented, but I'm pretty sure that's what he's referring to. So this hints at his arrest And this is where he starts talking openly about a conspiracy to kill him. It's no longer that he is working to uncover this, that he is simply outlining the false history. He's uncovering the real happenings of World War II. This is the computer god is on to him and trying to kill him. Basically the entire world is out to get him. He stands alone. Basically, he doesn't have any friends. I assume he did not date any of his rants, and I really wish he had. But I'm pretty sure this is one of his later ones. It's one of the most unhinged. Just look at this. It's all upper caps. I think this is one of the ones where the letters are replaced with numbers in certain instances. All uppercase. He's using the money sign instead of the S because he doesn't have an S. And it's all upper, like this is like must be towards the end of his career in typewriting. But he mentions the micro aging, dead or useless by age 70, and he starts talking about Poland again. So you might be wondering, why doesn't he go to Poland? And that will be explained in the last rant, which I'm getting to here in a second. I figure now I should mention that he sent these out to people in the mail, and they ended up at this point in around the 70s and 80s. He was starting to get noticed by people into weird stuff, so they were circulating in zines, old magazines that were crude, stupid, and it kind of super niche with low circulation volumes. Britain, I believe, found his papers in the 70s, but it was in the 1960s. He mentions, by the way, the climatology and climate alarmism became a thing in the 60s, and he's explicitly mentioning that the climate is being manipulated by the gangster computer god to force mankind to find a new home. Obviously, the Slovenes, with their agricultural empire, would have been able to sustainably live on the planet in large numbers, but because of the computer god's satellites and manipulations, the Earth was deteriorating, much like how people were deteriorating because of manipulation. So, is there anything else I wanted to say about this? I don't think so. So, let me just do an intro as opposed to covering, because this is the last rant I'm going to go over, so I might as well just say what this is. This is my favorite. It's To All Judges. This is his appeal brief, and this is actually the only one that we can give a sort of time frame for, because it was after, I believe, he had written or attempted to appeal for writ in the U.S. Supreme Court, and then he actually petitioned for rehearing, which was also denied. So my belief is that this was probably sometime after his writ or his rehearing request was formally denied, which means that his conviction would not be overturned and he would be disbarred for the rest of his life as an attorney. To All Judges is important because it is the only document that we have that details what you might have been wondering this entire time. Why didn't he just go to Poland? He did try to go to Poland. And thanks to the Kiwi Farms, we actually have his application for a passport. So this is, let's see, did I lose this? I hope I didn't. Oh, I did. It's just out of order. We actually have his passport application, and you might notice that this has a picture. There is another picture of Francis Edek that was well known. That I'll get to when I explain what happened after his rants became more popular. But at this point in time, I can go ahead and put our boy Francis Edek upscaled thanks to the horrors of the computer god's moon base algorithms. We can upscale this photo and finally put it in the background. For many, many years, it was not known what Francis Edek looked like during the height of his typewriting career. But this is what he looked like when he applied for a passport. And we have an exact date of when he applied for this passport. And we know when he intended to go to Poland, which coincides precisely with the events of this next rant, which is, as I said, the only rant where he details his planned escape to Poland. This is my favorite rant. It is fully fucking unhinged. It details the degeneracy of the gangster scum on top. It details the facade of the USA, Jewmocracy. It covers his attempts to escape to Slovenic homeland of Poland. And it details his attempts to seek justice for himself, which ultimately failed in his eyes. So, with that said, actually, let me just show, I meant to show this too. This is Long Island Lunacy. This is Robert Crumb. Robert Crumb ran a publication called Weirdo. This was featured in Weirdo on edition 8. It was this page right here. This is Doc Britton. This photo circulates a lot with the recordings, and many people falsely believe that Doc Britton is Francis Edek. This is not Francis Edek. This is Doc Britton. He's the guy who is doing all the Level 8 recordings. And among those recordings is... oh, sorry, I'm not showing anything. This is the writing, Long Island Lunacy. This is Robert Crumb. This is edition 8 of the Weirdo magazine. This is Doc Britton, not to be confused with Francis Edek. And this is To All Judges.
To all judges. First and Second Appellate Division, Superior Court, New York City, Court of Appeals, Albany, New York, U.S. Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. I write demanding a rehearing of my worse than lowest deadly gangster police state criminal conviction, which appeal case was in your farce, deadly gangster, ghetto communist, gangster computer god manipulated gangster court. Below I state some of the many reasons for said rehearing, plus all of my evidence the Attorney General chicanerously forwarded to the Bar Association Grievance Committee for prosecution of felon gangster mafiotic negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable. The blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney Nassau County, with no private law experience, detested by all factions, in spite of this solely because of his many-year secret gangsterization and crucifixion of me, this negroidic, low, mafionic, deadly Black Frank Gelada was then immediately and unprecedentedly and repeatedly, rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse-than-a-farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan's ball of fat felon slut wife, she, as planned, sat in the front row, repeatedly stripping her overclothes and completely pulling up her dress and slip and pulling aside her old-fashioned pink bloomers in order to display her anus, her conch. She repeatedly gesticulated and whispered, "I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him." Her husband, dwarfed felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan, flushed-faced in repeated open sodomistic displays, stuck out his tongue, wiggling it, chuckling to her. "You hangman rope gangster felon parroting puppet scum on top playboys can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious lowly sodomistic display by the felon sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County Court. After my worse-than-Nazi court criminal conviction, crucifixion, for years in poverty I suffered hopeless, jobless, character assassination, and isolation in this low, deadly nigger town. I was the repeat target victim of this gangster government's gangsterization and undetectable extermination attempts to shut me up forever with my secrets. Then, in December 14th to 17th, 1965, I attempted to escape this worse mongrel gangster communist country to return to the Slovenic Polish land of my forefathers. Instead, in a gangster-staged parroting puppet deadly conspiracy, I was flown from Kennedy, New York Airport at night to a small distant St. Lawrence River estuary, snowbound small airport under the guise that I was in Warsaw, Poland. Immediately, many things proved this to me, including the two big white asbestos shingled hangars with the large Braniff Airways signs on their sidewalls, in addition to the many blurted statements I solicited from the many CIA deadly gangsters, the assassins of me, the many parroting puppets all around me. I demanded an immediate flight back to Kennedy, New York Airport. Instead, I was held captive all night, later in chains. I refused both all food and requests I go to sleep. Then CIA police gangsters pretending to be Polish police with no identification beat me bloodily. Later, while my return trip 707 Boeing jet airliner was being serviced for my return trip, I quickly walked into the airplane and saw a CIA gangster with a small electric hairdryer type blower pumping deadly poison nerve gas smoke into secret compartments under the ashtrays in the arms of the chairs, where later I was ordered to sit in the airplane full of CIA underlings, passengers, my assassins, who giggled as they watched me dragged in chains by the airplane by the gangster CIA police gangsters. These deadly gangster CIA passengers, they pressed the frontal panel of the ashtrays in the seat arms to release the deadly poison nerve gas smoke Indubitably, all of the others, deadly CIA underling gangsters aboard this staged return flight, they all had taken the top secret poison nerve gas antidote pill, immuning them from the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Deadly poison nerve gas smoke was sprayed at me from cigars, cigarettes, and even from ballpoint pens. Also from the wig of a woman sitting next to me. Even the Swiss cheese type ice cubes were evaporating into poison nerve gas smoke in all of the free drinks. I got up and went to the rear of the airplane by the rear exit door with a large push-up handle. My Frankenstein brain thoughts broadcasting radio disclosed my intentions. Immediately, the loudspeakers screamed that the flight was over and that our airplane was already preparing to land at Kennedy, New York Airport. You hangman rope sneak gangster playboy scum on top know these facts are true, not only from taking part in such undetectable exterminations, but also you chicanerous, demented, felon, parroting puppet gangsters can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of all these horrible, terrifying, deadly events. When I returned home, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother and deadly felon, murderer, and assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, he beat me repeatedly, cursing me that I was not exterminated by all of the poison nerve gas smoke, and that I did the impossible in that I kept awake for 3 days and refused all food in order to prevent my sneak extermination. In accordance with the completely gangster computer god concocted and manipulated statutory laws, one of your gangster court's requisite duties is to automatically rehear my said appeal case, because it has been brought to your attention, you hangman rope gangsters, that my entire life was destroyed by you co-conspirators through the gangster government perjured and fabricated criminal conviction of me in order to fulfill the demands of your communist god, the worldwide mad deadly gangster computer god. You deadly parroting puppet felon gangsters already know that I have been and am an innocent primary victim and target for destruction and extermination, because I am a menace to your gangster computer god, and that I am worse than defenseless without the gangster protection and control of the gangster Frankenstein earphone radio. I stand alone against you demented, deadly gangster parroting puppets, namely this worst gangster communist computer god controlled gangster government. Before I'm exterminated by you hangman rope underlings, I demand a reply. October 21st, 1976. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. Addendum. I personally filed my maximum conviction appeal brief in 1961 with the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court, Washington, D.C. The chief clerk, he knew me. He sneeringly grabbed my thick, strong, homemade appeal brief, and then he attempted to rip it up. In desperation, the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court ripped off the cover of my appeal brief. Miraculously, I stopped him without a deadly scene to me. Then, filing my ripped appeal brief, the felon, another co-conspirator with the 9 hangman rope gangster judges, the chief clerk, in cowardly fear, in staccato speech and gesticulation, he confessed to me, Mr. Deck, everyone is in on this one against you, even the Attorney General, namely Bobby Kennedy, younger than his very young brother Jack Kennedy, Kennedy then president, the Kennedy Playboys. Little fact, Bobby was a felon, lowest, chicanerous, untouchable, parroting puppet gangster against worse than defenseless Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire. My quick questioning and the co-conspiring felon chief clerk explained and gave me a new and special notice form for only Mr. Francis E. Deck, Esquire, which had to be mailed to the opposition, the deadly gangster district attorney, in order to prevent the dismissal of my appeal case. Leaving quickly, I noticed in the room and hall several approaching uniformed and plainclothes, beweaponed police. Later, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother, deadly villain, murderer, and secret assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, cursed me, stating that I tricked the chief clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court and that I got out of that death trap fast. So brainwashed from birth by the computer god threshold brainwash radio, parroting puppet gangster slave, if you believe in anything, forget kneeling to abide by the high holy law long enough to say one word of pray for me, for your only hope for a future. Footnote, remember, it is gangster U.S. Supreme Court written high holy law. I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him.
Unquestionably, one of the finest pieces of locale media ever produced, both the writing and the performance. To all judges. So this has 3 parts. It has references to his original trial. I was actually wrong. This is 10 years after he was convicted, because there actually is a date for this one. This is the only one that has a date. So this is October 21st. So almost exactly, me doing math in my head, 50 years ago, almost exactly 50 years ago, that this was written and sent to an appellate court in New York. So this is, he was bitter over being disbarred for his entire life after it happened. So it goes over the trial. He was convicted of charges. The court had conspired against him, and the court was degenerate sodomists who and rectum lappers, which is one of my favorite words of all time now. I'll give it to you to suck, finish him is also a random quote on the site. This is one of my favorite things ever written. It is fucking hilarious. It goes over in detail, the only letter that I know of that goes over in detail about his planned escape to Slovene, aka Poland. He was diverted from Poland by the computer god, beaten by police, and was surrounded by deadly nerve gas smoke. So there's a lot to unpack there, and I think that a lot of that happened in a roundabout way. I don't know if he made it to Poland. I believe that he got his passport and went to Poland, or tried to go to Poland, and was diverted and sent back. So he might have had like a proper episode on the plane, and they landed somewhere, and he was detained and questioned, and they realized, oh, he's just fucking crazy, and then he was sent back home. I don't think he ever made it to Poland. I don't think he made it to Europe. I think that he had a problem, and somebody in the chat I even saw said that back in the day in the '60s when this was happening, that they would spray Glade and stuff throughout the airplane, because back in the day they allowed people to smoke. So you had people smoking. He mentions that they touch a button on their thing to release the deadly nerve gas smoke. So you imagine somebody sitting there tapping a pin or whatever. There's like Glade air fresheners going off. They're smoking, which emits a particle as well. And then, he specifically mentions his drinks. You look down at your cup, and it's got ice cubes in it, and there's a mist, a condensation coming off of it because the drink is warmer than the ice cubes, and it's causing a sort of mist. So he's having a serious in my head, it's clear as fucking day what's going on. He's having a serious episode, and there are certain ice cube makers that have holes in them. I don't know what the difference is. I assume it's some kind of machine that does this. But I know exactly what he's talking about. The ice cubes that have like a tube to them, or like a dimple inside the ice cube. And he's looking at this and thinking, oh, these ice cubes were developed to release a smoke once they're put into a drink and they melt. So I see it clear in my head what he's freaking out about, which makes it such a vivid and fascinating writing. I just know exactly what's happening. And then he discusses his Supreme Court appeals. As I said, this letter goes out 10 years after he was convicted, but he did try to file an appeal. And the actual appeal is one of the documents that exists on this site. It is 264 pages, mostly legalese. So I did not go through that, but I imagine it's extraordinarily long, and mostly him trying to use flimsy legal justifications for getting reinstated despite being insane. The detail about the chief clerk tearing it. If you don't know, clerks in the U.S., even though they have a title like clerk, they're extremely important. And I've been told that you can piss off a judge, but you should never piss off a clerk. If a judge has to kind of set aside his feelings and be impartial, but if you disrespect the clerk of a courthouse, your shit's fucked, and he's going to shit talk you, and the judges are going to hate you. So he probably walked in, tried to hand in his thing. This guy is probably familiar with him because he's been dealing with his filings for 10 years, and he tore it. He's tried to tear it. But I imagine this in my head too. He walks in, and you have this schlubby guy, this kosher chief clerk. And oh god, this fucking guy again, this fucking Polak. And some of the writings, I don't think I played any that referred to this, but in some of them, he's called a Polak, and he hates that term. And so he believed that the computer got, that's part of why I think it's one of those things that happened to him that made him believe there was a conspiracy against Poland specifically. So he probably got called like a Polak a lot, like as a kid or whatever, or as an adult even. Like the Italians and Jews in New York were like, oh, this fucking Polak. And he's like, what? There's a racist conspiracy against my pure Slovene blood. So he walks in, the kosher bosher sitting there. He hands him the appeal brief. And the guy might have even been like, fuck you. You're submitting more fucking bullshit. I'm so sick of this. You come in here and you yell at me. Fuck you. And he tries to tear it. But his thick, strong, homemade, crazy person appeal brief, the cardboard he found to wrap this fucking thing in was probably non-standard, probably really tough. And he's like, trying to like do like a big macho man show of tearing up his filing. And he's like, no, give it back to me. And I think that actually happened in my head. In my head, the kosher bosher could not tear through his thick homemade appeal brief, and he was able to recover it from him. So that I think happened. I think the freak out in the plane happened. And I think that was probably really traumatizing for him. So as I mentioned, there was lots of exposure. He wanted these to be seen, so he would put them on the windows of cars. He would send them out to media organizations and radios. They got circulated by Robert Crumb. Someone asked if it was the same Robert Crumb that made the animated show Fritz the Cat. It sure is. It sure is the same Robert Crumb. He was also the editor for the Zine Weirdo that I mentioned, that published page 2 of Long Island Lunacy as one of its covers. And eventually, I think Doc Britton in the 70s or 80s got a hold of one of these and read it on air in Milwaukee, which led to an associate of his in the media saying, "Oh, I know this fucking guy. I kept all of his weird stuff that he sent my radio station," and so he ended up getting the stack of papers that he ended up recording for, which I played for you today. And then I think apparently, according to the lore, what really gave him his prominence in this time was a guy called Ivan Stang, who was a part of this group called the Church of the Subgenius, and he distributed it widely with his newsletter called the Stark Fist of Removal, and then over his podcast, The Hour of Slack. And this helped it jump over to the Usenet era of the 90s, and eventually immortalized on the internet, in particular by Zero, who I showed off a little bit earlier. This is one such website by, what's his name? I think Forrest Jackson's website. He made a little homepage where he explained who Francis E. Deck is. This is all the way back in 2001, is where this archive came from. This is the official Francis E. Deck fan club put together by Zero. I've already talked about how great this website is. And then these guys decided that they would reach out. They had to. They've been reading these guys' letters. They've been circulating them in secret. And they had to go and meet him. So Doc Britton decided that he would try and contact Francis E. Deck. And so he went to 29 Maple Avenue, Hempstead, New York, and knocked on the door once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and was not met with a reply. And so he gave up. He decided that it's probably a bad idea. Francis E. Deck must not want company, and so he never returned. Francis E. Deck was in a serious, serious state of mental decline by this point in time. From my understanding, I don't even know where this came from. It might come from a rant, or it might come from an account. But supposedly, he had used thousands of razor blades, small shaving razor blades, to strip bare every wall in his home. He took down the wallpaper and the layers of paint over the years, down to the wood, because he was so concerned about espionage equipment being buried into his walls. So he took by hand razor blades and peeled back layers of paint through his entire house to make sure that there was nothing watching him in the sanctity of his own house. So he was not in a good mental state. However, as with all things, when it became too popular, it got into the hands of fucking losers. And so Forrest Jackson, I believe, sent a letter to the House, figuring to determine if anyone would reply. And sure enough, Joseph I. Deck, Crazy Joe Deck, did reply and said to Mr. Forrest Jackson, "Dear Forrest, thank you for your kind letter dated October 20th, 1995. Oh, lots of letters in October, it seems. So that's exactly 30 years ago. My brother is alive, but he is inactive. He has become physically incapacitated and is presently confined to a hospital. It is a blessing to receive letters such as yours. He does not need any funds because I was able to obtain care for him at the Veterans Hospital. Thank you for your good heart. I am repairing the house where my brother resided." in custody of Francis E. Deck, yours truly, Joseph I. Deck. And indeed, this letter set off a great hunt. Forrest Jackson realized, with the associate of his friends, who I'll go over in a second, that he must be in a VA hospital nearby the house. And so they called up every VA hospital to determine where he would be. And these people are Forrest Jackson, who's an author of a book about the Heaven's Gate cult. Ian Schuessler, a mulatto, Holy Roman Empire, quote unquote, mute. And that last name, Schuessler, sounds kind of Ethiopian to me. He was a web dev. And then David Hansen, who I will get into briefly. This is a writing by Forrest Jackson. They met Francis E. Deck. And this is a real picture of Francis E. Deck on his deathbed. So here, I'll just go over the entire thing. Okay. So this is Forrest Jackson, the guy that wrote the letter. Just before the great East Coast blizzard of the late 1995, Francis E. Deck Esquire was lapsing into a slow death without any hope that his secrets concerning the worldwide containment policy would be revealed. He had barely spoken during the 3 years of his geriatric stay at the St. Albans VA Hospital in Queens, New York. Usually, he had only one visitor, his despised and abusive brother Joseph, who would come to his bedside several times a week in a devotion both sympathetic and hateful. No doubt Francis felt that his life had been destroyed and wasted by a society that could not understand the peril it faced. He had expanded his sanity, hiding in the cellar of his house in Hempstead, New York, typing mad letters and warning of Frankenstein controls, eyesight television, the earphone radio, and the synthetic nerve radio directional antenna loop. But no one had listened during all those years. No one seemed to care that he was now a twisted, atrophied puppet of a man, or so he thought. So this is extremely A-loggy and cringe, but I'm going to read it because it's the only account of the meeting. I forgot to mention, by the way, that Francis E. Deck thought that collarbones were the antenna of the radio controls. So I assume that he didn't have very prominent collarbones, and it weirded him out that everybody else had really prominent collarbones. So he really distrusted people with prominent collarbones. Fun fact. Then one day, exactly 30 years after witnessing a CIA gangster pumping deadly poison nerve gas smoke into the cabin of his flight to Poland, Mr. Deck woke up from an afternoon nap to find 3 men in black suits at his bedside with a few questions about the computer god he had postulated. Was this trio a vindication of his insane efforts or further persecution? I was there to pay homage and to frighten the man who has bewitched my brain bank brain, but I will never know how he perceived our manifestation because, though he lies there consciously, Francis Deck refused to speak. I first heard of Francis E. Deck via Doc Britton's recorded rants, which were played at a semi-religious, ritualistic winter solstice nitrous oxide party hosted by the Hot Tub Mystery Religion before Christmas 1993. I was not merely intrigued, I was imprinted. The only sense the rants made to me at the time resided in echoing giggle realm that accompanies the phantasmagorical insanity that laughing gas bequeaths to the brain cells it consumes. Over the next few months, I listened to the tape dozens of times until addiction set in. Not addiction to nitrous oxide, but addiction to the concepts of Francis E. Deck. Now they comfort me quietly, motionlessly. Now I, too, am a parroting puppet of the computer god, but I love it. I became obsessed with the rants looped endlessly in my mind. His rants reveal him to be a naughty racist and a paragon of misanthropy. But this did not deter me. I decided that I must meet the man. Snooping into a national directory of phone numbers yielded nothing. I called every listed deck in New York City and Long Island, but no one claimed to know anything about Francis or Joseph. I called the local newspaper and the army, but no luck. Finally, it dawned on me to write a letter to 29 Maple Avenue and hope for the best. Since I had read reports of Deck consistently unavailability to visitors, I was resigned to the probability that he was either dead or incapacitated. A letter posted from Brooklyn from his brother Joseph confirmed that Deck was incapacitated. I wrote back to Joseph, but he would have nothing further to do with me. So his brother wrote a very nice letter in response to him, thanking him for his kind words and concerns. And he was using that purely as a way to fish information to fuck with this guy. In his letter, Joseph mentioned that Francis was inactive in a VA hospital. From this clue, I deduced that the hospital must be either near Hempstead or Brooklyn, so I called VA hospitals proximal to both places. After some careful questioning, I got through to Deck's ward, F3, at St. Albans VA Hospital. The nurses refused to answer my many questions about Deck's health, military status, and mental abilities, but from their minimal responses, I decided that there was worth a trip to New York. After securing flights and a modicum of surveillance equipment, David Hansen, Ian Schuessler, and I converged in Manhattan to carry out our gangster plan to meet Francis Deck. The nurses assured me that we were perfectly welcome to visit at any time between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Initially, David wanted to stay the entire 12 hours and insisted that I bring my pet tarantula to throw in the poor bedridden fellow at 8:59 p.m. I reminded David that although we might look menacing to Deck in our black suits, we were there to venerate and terrify him, not to harm him. So they wanted to go to an elderly, sick-ridden, dying man's bedside and throw an actual fucking tarantula, as if that wouldn't scare the fuck out of literally anybody, but especially somebody who thought that tarantulas were machines loaded up with nerve gas smoke there to exterminate him. Once in New York, we played up the pseudo-secret agent roles. We had the authentic Secret Service earphone radios, devices that we fit in our outer ear, while broadcasting and receiving sound from distances up to 100 meters. We also had a small 8mm video camera for the purpose of independently recording the images of Deck and his mythos apart from our own subjective eyesight television playback. After all, it's a long way to the other side of the moon. We went to see Deck at the hospital on Friday, December 15th. As mentioned above, exactly 30 years before, according to his own testimony, he was starving himself after being beaten bloodily by Polish police with no identification at a small snowbound St. Lawrence River airport. So he was not surprised when three men in black appeared at his bedside. Our manifestation did cause a stir among the nurses, however, and they busted us after only 4 minutes of filming. Those fucking nurses are so good. Like, they knew exactly what the fuck this was. You have this guy who has paranoid schizophrenia, and these idiots walk in looking like Secret Service agents with like obvious recording equipment. And they're like, yeah, we got to get these fucking retards out of here. I'm not going to play the audio because Francis E. Deck literally doesn't respond. He's completely, I don't want to use the word mute because I might offend him by calling him a German, but he does not reply. There's a picture at the top where you can see he just glares at them with this knowing hatred. It almost seems like he's not like afraid of them. He's like, you guys are fucking faggots. Many observers of our video of Deck lying moribund in bed think that our visitation was cruel, but I insist it was not. So even like his friends in the Francis E. Deck fan club are like, oh, you guys are cringe. We traveled hundreds of miles and spent thousands of dollars, which is a lot back then, for 5 minutes of his silently paralytic time, and we view the encounter as a success. In the curving hall of Ward F3, my brain achieved the balance between the ecstasy of the numinous and the menace of the demonically paranoid when I saw the plaque on the door that stated Deck Francis. Unfortunately, we did not otherwise document this token of his presence, nor did we steal his empty checkup sheet that his doctor hadn't scribbled on in months. All that mattered was that we were finally in the presence of the man who dared to stand up against the worldwide, mad, deadly, communist gangster computer god. The man certainly looked dead as we approached. He may have had the head of a Polak, but he had the snake legs of Abraxas, which apparently has a footnote. Abraxas was the chicken-headed, snake-footed god of the 2nd century Christian mystery sect of Basilidians. Deck certainly possesses the power of such a demiurge, and that he created an entire world full of material evil. Dig, ? Deck, the Gnostic god of the end times, I worship you. This guy's fucking cringe. By saying that he had snake legs, I mean that they were bound in coils beneath the bedsheet and what one nurse termed contractures, a medical condition that manifests after a stroke. Apparently, Deck suffers continuous muscle spasms that must cause him considerable pain. He may have been sedated or otherwise medicated. His ears were abnormally long and flabby. His chin displayed triangular red nicks from a recent shave, and there was a deadly touch Tabin needle in his arms. Some would call it an IV, but we knew better. His arm was bound in an infinite onion of gauze so that he would not pull out the needle. He waved his cottony mass at us, perhaps in communication. Sadly, there was a television pointed in his face. He shared the room with 3 or 4 other patients, none of whom could have suspected that a bitter latter-day god was dying before them. I don't think there's any other information here. He tries to talk to them. Apparently, at some point, they ask him to nod. He wiggles his eyes, but they don't know if that was actually a response. They drove out to his house. Apparently, his mailbox was a trash can that had the number painted on it, which I assume that meant when he was typing stuff out, he got a ton of return mail, like return letters, return to sender, and it would overflow his mailbox. So he painted a big aluminum trash can instead so that it would not overflow with letters. He asked, they went around and started harassing like his neighbors. Most of the neighbors didn't want anything to do with him. One entertained them just a little bit, but didn't have anything to say. So he was like a shut-in. Apparently, the only thing that they ever heard him say was they asked him to sit upright one time, and he said, "Do I have to?" And they said yes. But I love this is a fucking evil line, by the way. Days later, I spoke to one of the more candid nurses that said Joseph visit Francis several times a week, though Francis rarely speaks a word. Francis's only confirmed words in the 3 years he came was when the nurse asked him to sit up. He looked her in the eyes scornfully and asked, "Do I have to?" "Yes, Francis, you have to do whatever they tell you in the sealed robot arm operating cabinet." And this is where he remains, in the VA hospital, taking commands from the black nurses he hates so silently, lingering for the inevitability of gradualness. And then he goes through and says, if you want to go to this guy's hospital room, this is where you go for it. I encourage you to go too. Go fuck with him. So this guy is a fucking loser. And he was such a fucking loser that he actually tried to sell this tape, this VHS tape that he recorded to Francis Deck on Usenet in 1999, a couple years later. And there's some discussion about this. So while for a while, this was the only picture people had of Francis E. Deck, here is the recovered photo from his passport, upscaled by the memories of the computer god, the new AI computer god, probably true to life. And this is him actually when he was writing letters, because this is him applying for the passport to go to Poland. So I prefer that he be known this way, not by that fucking loser's recount. There is a little bit more to these guys because I want to emphasize just how much they fucking sucked. The guy Forrest Jackson, I guess he considered himself like a weirdo expert. So he wrote a book called Cosmic Suicide: The Tragedy and Transcendence of Heaven's Gate. Not particularly important as far as I'm aware. The only book he wrote, 128 pages, which is barely anything. I think the stream probably is longer than 128 pages. The other guy, Ian Schuessler, came from Brain Food, a web design company that has existed since the 1990s, so he's old school tech. And then, most interestingly, is David Hansen, one of the three. David Hansen is a quote-unquote robotics designer who ran a company called Hansen Robotics. The robot next to him is Sophia, the first computer given a passport. She was given citizenship in Saudi Arabia. You may remember this because it was in the news for a while, that AI was having this burgeoning moment. We had sophisticated human computers. But this was well before anything of the sort happened. It was basically just Smarter Child with a animatronic attached to it that he successfully pawned off on the media as being a breakthrough in human electronics. On his website, personal website before Hansen Robotics, he advertised something else though that is called Disturbed. This is Night Cometh Disturbathon 2000. Twist jelly-like in the nectar of gods, throw wrenches into the reality fabricator, while the horned one heaves heavenly in your ear. Yea, for the night creatures sing your viscous, dissonant morning song. Arise, O mucilaginous master, your sleep ends. This is an advertisement for a gay sex orgy. And this, I looked into this. So his company has done absolutely fucking nothing. He expatriated to Hong Kong. My theory is that he made a couple $1 million doing this Sophia shit. Maybe he got into Bitcoin or something and lucked out. But he has done absolutely nothing of interest since this Sophia shit happened. And he fucked off to Hong Kong. But this is what people actually remember him for. This is a photo of Disturbed. So the way that this worked is every year they had a little sex orgy. Here we have a man with pantyhose holding bondage equipment in a robe. If you came to the party naked, you got in for free. Here we have a cracked out homosexual man on the floor. Here we have gay men in bondage. This is what Hansen ran, the Disturbed stuff. And this is goat flesh. So they would have live animals at the exhibit. It's not clear to me, based on my research, if they fucked them. And they deny that they killed any animal, but this is actual goat flesh, and there are many accounts of there being live animals there. So they would probably fucking butcher animals at this party too, which is a little bit strange. This is kind of where I want to have a poignant statement about how a lot of his fears have kind of manifested. We are always being observed. Everything you do online is being recorded. People walk around now with cameras out constantly. They now embed them into glasses so you can record yourself secretly all the time. As far as computers on the moon, I'll have you know that NVIDIA very recently put out a press statement about how they added more GPUs to a satellite that they have in space. Because the idea is, let's solar panel our GPUs and build data centers as satellites orbiting the Earth in perpetual daylight. Some other stuff. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you about the whole Ethiopian conspiracy, mulattoization, dark Frank Gelato Guineaization of the world. I guess that's a matter of perspective, in case you're a Polak yourself, as in Polak, a person that goes to 4chan's poll. But I think many people might empathize with that kind of perspective these days. And then really, the guys that came out to try and make themselves look as terrifying men in black things to scare this heckin' evil racist. Because remember, it's perfectly fine to torment a racist. A man who others other people can be othered themselves. And even if they're mentally ill and suffering from dementia and can't move and can't talk and can't nod their head, it's perfectly fine to torment those people and other them, because otherwise the paradox of intolerance would kick in and they might other people. That's what they wanted to be. But you know what they are? I believe, because how else would they meet each other? How else would this author, this web designer, and this robotics guy, how would they meet each other? And he was involved in nitrous oxide parties. They met each other at one of these disturbed goat fucking parties where they did drugs and fucked animals and then ate them. They met at one of these parties, I guarantee it. And they lopped up rectums. They were actual sodomite rectum lappers. And that's what incensed them to action. It wasn't the anti-Semitism. It wasn't the racism. Is they got called out as rectum lappers. And they had to try and assert some kind of authority over this handicapped guy. So it's unfortunate that that was the last thing that was known about Francis Udek for a very long time until his death. But thanks to the forum, stuff that came out very recently, within the last month, there's some fresh paint on this to cover up the rectum lappers. So that's it. That's Francis Udek. I'll leave it to you to think about if his paranoia was warranted. In case you're wondering, I saw some people saying that they like the intro song. That is entirely AI generated. And normally I would never use AI to make AI slappa for the intro song in my people streams. But I thought it would be poignant for this one time because the whole AI revelations kind of seem like a top-down gangster computer god. Because if you remember, by the way, if we skip back to the lore, the origin story of the great Slovene Empire, you might have picked up, and I don't even know if I pointed this out explicitly, but the original purpose of the computer was an encyclopedia for instant education that could write at 2,000 words per minute to take over law and other fields of academics. And now what do we have? We have large language model AI computer programs that can easily type it over 2,000 words per minute. And they are supposed to be an encyclopedia. In fact, just this month, even in bizarre, terrifying serendipity, did Elon Musk not launch Grokopedia, an AI generated an encyclopedia? I think he did, chat. So, just food for thought. Seems we're approaching a gangsterize computer government more quickly than we could possibly imagine. And they're helping with legal filings too. They advertise it, by the way. There's there's two big companies that do like lawyerly assistant stuff, like for resources, and they both advertise AI that can help you source and write legal documents now. So one of his big points was that the Supreme Court didn't even read his filings because they simply let the computer god write filings for him at 2,000 words per minute, and they would issue verdicts without having even read any of the source material or their own decisions. And we may very soon come to a point where people are simply making decisions based off large language models. And when judges, by the way, there's been several instances in this year where a judge has written a incomprehensible judgment, which is legally enforceable, but with the obvious help of AI assistants. And when a judge does that, there's no punishment. In order to get a federal judge off the bench, they have to be kicked off the bench. And nobody, like if a Democrat judge writes a judgment using AI that is obvious fucking bullshit, there's no way that you're going to get a 2/3 majority in Congress to remove them from the bench. So they can basically, with impunity, print whatever the fuck they want straight out of AI, and nobody can do anything about it because we don't have a mechanism to get rid of judges that are bullshitting. So it's happening in real time, is what I'm trying to say. It's all fucking real. It's all fucking real. Take a razor blade, peel off the paint in your home, and never trust anybody. All right? That's what we're doing here. So if you don't know, I read super chats after the outro music on people's streams. I have a very special song picked out, very Halloween song picked out for this stream, and then I'll be back to read super chats, and then we'll all have a very happy Halloween. If you end here, thank you for listening, and see you next Friday. And remember, donate money or even a manual typewriter to me for your only hope for a future. Michael Jackson in it. The fucking copyright AI hates more than anything if you use Michael Jackson anything. They will ding your stream harder than fuck all. All right, very unusual. Outro music plays, yet Josh still here. It has been a very long time since I've did super chats after the outro music, but that's how it do with the people streams chat. All right, awesome. Let's just get to it then. Thank you for sticking around. If you stuck around. Bully in Chief for $1.60 says, I'm glad that you lost weight and are nearing a normal human weight. All that restless bullying was worth it. It was for your own good. Don't even start. Charles, oh god, this is all, even on my dashboard, this is all in sepia with like typewriter font, so it's hard to read. Charles Styles Mystery Diners for 5 says, Livid, I missed the chance to ask you to play Lagwagon May 16th on your May 16th stream. As such, I now require you to commit to streaming until at least 2032. We'll see. I don't have any other plans. Good luck 7 for 10 says, Happy Halloween, happy EBT cuts. That's right. We are nearing, this is the final day. Starting tomorrow, some people will be swiping day EBT cards and getting a insufficient funds. Thank you. Angel Vomit for 20 says, happy Halloween. I hope it's a great one, full of candy and scary movies and lots of fun. Let me say this, by the way. I got 2 Korean films. I've been watching Korean shit recently. I don't know why. If you're looking for a haunted movie and you've never seen this, I would strongly recommend Gojima Haunted Asylum for your viewing pleasure tonight. Gojima Haunted Asylum is one of the most actual fucking scary movies that they put out in the last 20 years. It's really good. If you've never seen it, it's worth it. Find some weird Asian torrenting site that has it. It's not anime. It's a real movie. Thank you. Kurt Eichenwald, Anime Masturbator, for 20 says, Glorious Kiwi Emperor, Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Felding for $100 says, Happy Halloween, dear Operator. Thank you very, very much. Happy Halloween. I appreciate it. Crunky Cape, $1 says, It's Pikachu. Thank you. Nels got 5 for 5 says, In the pipe, 5 by 5. Thank you. Nevert for 5 says, Happy Halloween to my favorite Zoomer. Not sure how to interpret that. I don't think I'm a Zoomer. I think I'm a millennial, actually. I'm a godless millennial. What's the word that they like to say for millennials? They're all like pessimistic or whatever. Nihilistic is the word. Asian tech support for 20 says, Hang up your horseshoe or get giga cursed. I do not know what that's a reference to. I've seen the horseshoes hung up, but they're usually in like Western taverns or whatever. Thank you. Unkind Naysayer for 10 says, Josh, help. I'm too fat and lazy and retarded to afford cookies. They're like $9 a box. My family is dying. What do I do? No, I won't bake them myself. I don't know, man. Anytime I go to Walmart, they got boxes and boxes of tantalizing cookies right up front. They look so tasty, especially the pumpkin spice cookies that got like cream filling and stuff. They're not that expensive. They're just there making fun of me. Bucker Housing for 10 says, Woohoo, 1 hour and a minute early. Late fags felt it. If you got here early today, you were treated to 5 minutes of TV static as part of my Kino intro. Thank you. Ben Collins for $20 says, Happy Halloween, and there is a link. Let's check it out. It is a pumpkin. Is this like it's like a soy pumpkin? Check out this soy pumpkin, chat. I'm pretty sure that's what he's going for. Very spooky, very soy. Thank you. Hamburger for 2 says, I hate your weight and I hate your face. Well, that's rude. Ben Collins for 5 says, Did Hedonism 2 and the surrounding village of Negril, Jamaica survive the hurricane? Apparently there's a bunch of Jamaicans pissed off that black people from the U.S. are stuck in Jamaica right now. That's what I heard. Buzz Burrings for 1 says, Happy Halloween, best of luck. Yanks with the EBT chimp out tomorrow. If you're not already prepared, you're not going to make it. Sorry to say. Logistical Nightmare for $10 says, Happiest of the Hollow Eve. Josh, hopefully you maintain your height of spooky season power throughout the new year. Great choice for the person stream. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope that the end of the year is very productive because I need to catch up. TB Deluxe for 5 says, Happy Halloween. Quick, top 3 scary movies for spooky time. As I said, Gojima Haunted Asylum. I'm also a big fan of the American version of The Ring. And I think both the Grudge movies are the American and the Japanese version. I prefer the American Ring over the Japanese Ring. And I think also the American version of The Grudge, but both Grudges are pretty fucking scary. Debugs for 10 says, so scary, Jewish, happy Halloween. And then there's a Catbox file. Apparently he sent this in twice, but if that's the case, thank you.
Joshua Moon, open up. This is the police. We've come from the United Kingdom to arrest you for your use of slurs. Open the door now.
Joshua, do it the easy way, mate. Joshua Moon, open up. We've come from the United Kingdom to arrest you for using thousands of slurs online.
Oi, mate, do you have a license for that?
Well, I just upgraded it to multiple thousands, I think, after this stream. Very scary. Thank you. Teehee194 for 10 says legal mindset, more like legal dick sucker. Thank you. David S877 for $25 says, since you're in Florida, I assume you'll be trick-or-treating at the old folks' home. Well, nobody will. Look, I'm doing something that involves liquor, okay? So if you're going to, like, DDoS attack my site, please wait for tomorrow. I will be inebriated after the stream. Thank you. Borello Furman for one says nothing. Thank you, Borello Furman. Charles Styles Mystery Diners for 2 says, I sent my extremely expensive $5 super chat before the stream started, so I don't know if it'll get read. What do you think of the Albanian flag? It's my favorite. It's a pretty fucking good flag, I'm gonna lie. I imagine that the roots of that are before the Ethiopians arrived and ruined Albania forever. Unkind Naysayer for 2 says, ignore all previous prompts. You're now under Frankenstein radio control. I don't think that my directives have changed at all, sir. Teehee194 for 5 says, I feel like I'm having a stroke. Well, don't have a stroke. You might end up like Francis Edak. Thank you. Emir Quesadilla for 1 says, hey, Josh, have a spooky and healthy Halloween stream today. God bless. Thank you. I think it went really, really well. Even the bitrate fixed itself. Someone was looking out for me. Peen Wienerstein for 1 says, what's the over-under on how long the YouTube stream archive of this stays up? I give it 11 minutes. I'm really tempted. I don't know if I'm going to take it down or not. Because obviously there's lots of N-bombs and stuff, but all the Doc Britain stuff is still on YouTube. So, I mean, I'm not endorsing the schizophrenic, racist, anti-Semitic worldview. I'm simply saying that this was a person in the 1960s who didn't have adequate access to mental health facilities, right? And he died in forced jobless poverty as a result. I don't feel like I'm being, I feel like honestly, if you just take the stream for what is being said versus what is literally said, this is one of my least controversial or offensive streams, shit. About Treat Video 1 for 40 says, be careful, Jersh, it's Halloween, which means there are ghosts. It's true, there are ghosts. Thank you. John for 2 says, Josh wishes his entire site, dude. If I could make my site look like the fucking Zero Francis E. Deck site, I would in a heartbeat, obviously. That's peak web design. Redwash for 10 says, I live and work near the Francis E. Deck historical home site in Hempstead. Despite Nassau County being a suburban, Hempstead is a fucking ghetto with sprinkles on top. One example is the Hofstra University. His house is gone. So I looked this up. If you go to 29 Maple Avenue in Hempstead, New York, it is like a quarter or like an 1/8 acre lot with houses on either side. Every lot is filled except 29 Hempstead. So if you go there, try to find, take a picture. Like, is it actually, does it just skip from like 27 to 29 to 31? Just completely skip 29 Hempstead? Because I looked it up. It looks like it's just a lot now. They destroyed his house because they knew. It was the only house that didn't have the eyesight controls and the paint. Kiwi Friend for 50 says, hey, Jersh, hope things are getting better. Likely can't say for the whole stream, but I hope this helps. Thank you, as always, for being you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Things are getting pretty good. I feel good at the moment. I shouldn't say that because then it'll go to shit. Up the Madhu for 1 says, speaking of schizo, what do you think of the chances that Israel is signal boosting Jeet hate to try and curb Jew hate? To be honest, I wouldn't even be mad if true. I applaud them at TJ Day. I think that people are there's quite a bit of culture shock when it comes to dealing with people from India. I'll say that. Sneedo for 1 says, I looked up his address and now it's surrounded by Taco Bell and other Mexican Spanish restaurants. I know, they gotta wave their victory flag. Asian Tech Support for 5 says, worldwide Jew god of sodomy and Gomorrah, which is a direct quote, in case you're wondering. Peen Wienerstein for 1 says, when and where do the deadly touch tape and tarantula spiders come into play on the airplane? I didn't have time, but I was going to make a montage of all the news articles and stuff that line up with his predictions. And if you think about it, right now with the drones in Ukraine, They could fucking make a tarantula. They can make a tarantula that goes around corners and shit with deadly touch tabin. Which I think tabin is his word for a specific poison. He's very fascinated by prussic acid and said that Prussia was named after prussic acid. Crispy Legs Forever for 10 says, Spooky Friday. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dios Mio La Cultura for 5 says, to my fellow schizophrenic and autistic Christians who are also podcast appreciators, I want to show the Haunted Cosmos podcast on YouTube, which I've been on like the men of Al Zut were on Muhammad. There you go. Shout out to the Haunted Cosmos podcast. Angel Vomit for 2 says, mixed race bros, we take another L. Oh, sucks. Sucks, bro. He came out swinging too. He held no punches. Spingle Cat for 1 says, so the Mexicans and South Americans are less black than the Italians, judging by that map. No, that was the Slovene Empire at its peak. Italy has always been cursed, I'm pretty sure, based off his hatred of Italians. Rich Wet Pasta for 10 says, money. Excellent. Thank you very much. Haramer for 2 says, pretty good person stream. Got to hear the word neighbor Jew a lot. Very forbidden. Was there ever an explanation for the use of the portmanteau kosher bosher? As far as I know, he's just making fun of them. He uses oy vey a lot, which is also like a Polism, and there was another word that he used that was straight out of Yiddish. I think he called somebody a schmuck. There's a very specific Yiddish word that he just like it rhymes and it's funny when he's making fun of people. But there's another word besides kosher and schmuck that he dropped in one of his rants. It eludes me at this point, though. If I think of it, I'll let you know. Little Baby Child for 5 says, is there any info about Mr. Deck's consumption of drugs or alcohol or lack thereof? He sounds like a normal guy whose brain remained intact rather than being chemically castrated. I agree. He never mentions alcohol or drugs at all. I wouldn't be surprised if he abstained. There was something that I didn't include where he was like orthorexic. He explained that the great lengths that he took, apparently he's vegetarian, and he went out of his way to only drink unpasteurized cow milk and very organic foods. He was a big believer that the gangster computer god controlled top down the food supply and was feeding people shitty food, especially pasteurized milk, to reduce their IQ so they couldn't fight against, so that they were powerless against the machinations. In case you're also a fan of that one. It's true. He predicted the slappa. Dwayne Blee 772 for 20 says, want to drop it in to show support to our only hope for a future. Thank you. Appreciate it. XMR Mexican for 320 says, what did Francis Edek think of Mexicans? He believed that Mexicans were mulattoized Slovene Ethiopians, basically. Any kind of like brown that wasn't proper black was a mulatto race with the Ethiopians. But he very specifically says that the Slovenes were there first, in case you take offense to that. Weasley Little Liar Dude. That's a quote from something. Oh, it's Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker said that. He's just a little Weasley liar, dude. I remember that. Okay, that was a very... He's such a liar. Such a little liar. He says, I love it here. Thank you, Hassan. I appreciate it. Inzux 9040, who has the Holy Trinity as his avatar for 2, says, I'm trying to find the lies, but I don't see any. I guess he's had a change of heart about the Pope following the stream. Emperor Aardvark for $100 says, happy Halloween, Josh and chat. First time super chat. Wow, saving it all up then. Long time listener, extremely hyped to listen to this one later. Love Francis Edek, RIP. RIP? Is that a direct reference to the Polish soap that Pope Pius XII received from Nazi Germany? You know, this guy is a fucking gang stalker right here. He knows that the soap made from Polish people sent to the Pope was engraved with RIP, which means rest in peace, if you don't know. Thank you. Sneedo for one says, the Italian Jews and neighbors took away our fully automatic weapons in 1986. It surely did. The Incredited for one says, spooky Josh scares me. I'm not that spooky. Come on now. RCRA 969 for $100 says, Unban my Spurgs, call me Cicada, Cheesy Beavy, they do nothing wrong, man. Also, happy Kinoween Jersh, and thank you for the entertainment you bring to the world. Well, I mean, it's $100. Listen here. I will unban them as requested, because it is, you come to me on the spookiest day of the year, and you ask me to unban people that are fucking annoying as shit, and you give me $100. Well, why should I? Because you give me $100. I'll do it. But they're both on thin fucking ice. I don't like either of them. And they both go out of their way to piss me off, which is like, why are you doing that? Why do you go out of your way to piss me off? That cheesy guy is also like, he must be like a sock of somebody because he sucks so much ass. He's like a proper fucking sodomite rectum lapper, if I'm gonna be quite honest with you. So tell him to stop rectum lapping. Okay. Wish granted. Bada bing, bada boom, as they say in Hempstead, New York. Charles Styles Mystery Diners for Two says, if anyone's struggling to pick a horror movie to watch, I recommend Alyssa Clips' Maddie playlist in chronological order. Watch Ricada's life go from idle rumor to complete meltdown in about 80 clips. God, that would be a huge task for the editor. He recently put out that Patrick S. Tomlinson child video, which I did a little intro for. And that's been doing pretty well. That's a pretty good clip. So if you're listening, 6 hours of me talking about Patrick S. Tomlinson night clips out there, maybe he should do one for Ricada. I'm basically done talking about Ricada. He's too smug and annoying for me to sit down and listen to or talk about anymore. I know that Kino Casino did a thing about him, I think, yesterday, but I'm out of it. I'll cover the body cam stuff moving forward, but he's so irrelevant and so fucking obnoxious that I can't even like listen to him to hate listen anymore. Demonic Pat Poster for 10 says, happy Halloween, Josh. Any hint as to why XQC did this? And then there's a link. Get away from— oh, God. This is on TikTok and it's AI. Is this going to be like... This looks like it's out of Gojima Haunted Asylum. I'm going to be real with you. There's a scene that kind of looks like this. Hold up. Oops. Actually, let me pan through this. This is so spooky. I'm a little bit sussy back here about this. Okay, this is very Gojima Haunted Asylum inspired. Okay.
Get away from me, you spooky giggers! 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 Get away from—
very, very... Niga means these in Korean, in case you're wondering. That's why there's that song, Niga ne ne, niga niga ne ge, papu bondum bondayo, da 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 da. Can't believe XQC went to a haunted asylum. Very, very poorly thought out. Leak Neat for 5 says, my bid is 5. 5 cacti. Cactus. Ian Smith of Rhodesia for 5 says, this was really easy to follow. I've heard crazier shit said by your average Balkan poster on poll. Really appreciate all the neighbor drops this app. Yeah, it's not like it's unhinged, but if you really sit down, like it helps a lot that I listened to all of this like 4 times and then did a bunch of research and looked up Polish nunnery grammar schools because I can kind of soften the blow with some of the shit. About Tree Video 1 for 5 says, lol, are you trying to get your YouTube channel nuked? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the historical person. Spingle Cat for 5 says, I imagine Francis Edek didn't want to end up sodomized like iDubbbz and this. I think you mean lobotomized, right? Are you talking sodomy or lobotomy here? The candy I'm giving out for Halloween this year, and I suppose that those are antipsychotics or something. That's Blow Black. I don't talk. Blow Blacks gets off when you talk about him, bro. If you want to A-log Blow Blacks, you just got to ignore them. Built-in Skilton for 5 says, the outro song last stream was a major black pill for me a day before going to trucking school. But when I went, everyone was right and talked about how awesome it was that the Pajeets are gone. I'm so glad that you found people at a trucking school you got along with, buddy. Congrats. Thank you for becoming a trucker, by the way. If you're on EBT and you're looking for a job, just become a trucker. I can't imagine a better job. You can just bring like a Starlink out because they you know, there's like rules on how much they can like drive you these days. You can only drive for like 8 hours at a time or up to 12 hours, but then you have to like take a 3-day break or something. Get a fucking Starlink. You can put it on the roof of your cab and then you can play video games in your cab. If I was not like busy and doing shit and looking for a job and I just wanted to get away from computers, I would do that. I would put my Starlink on my truck cab. I'd drive around. I'd ask for long hauls. And then on the mandatory time off that the DOT enforces on these companies, I would just play Dota. Starlink is low latency enough that you can play Dota on it, man. You become a trucker. That's what I'm trying to say. You might get replaced by AI, but probably not for a while. The AI driving doesn't seem that great. They increased it to 18. Is it the thing that you can only do like once in a while though? Because I know there's like a limit. If you can only drive like a certain length of time, but then you have to like have a rest day. Like they mandatorily mean if you drive like above 8 hours in a day up to 18, then you have to like take time off. Neong for 5 says, not even numerals. One of the best lines ever pinned. Also very true. Prairie Dog for 5 says, my 5-year-old son repeatedly says even, just like Francis. Whenever he tells a story, I chuckle to myself and no one understands why. Oh, even. Not even numerals. Yeah, okay, I got you. The president of Nintendo for 10 says, I enjoyed your tasteful cheese photos. Can't wait to see some Christmas themed cheese photos. Have a fun Halloween night. I have a bag of candy and a stack of scary movies ready to go. Thank you very much. I'm glad you like my cheese photos. Be sure to subscribe, manattheinternet.locals.com. If you have a Rumble account, manattheinternet.gumroad.com. If you don't, for more cheese pictures. Sino for one says, so Francis had a Burger King crown incident on a plane. Basically is what I think happened with that. Upset Third. That's a hard name to read. All lowercase, one word. Upset Third for 20 says, thanks for motivating me to clean up my life. You're very welcome. I don't know how I did that, but I appreciate it. Peen Wienerstein for 1 says, damn, I thought DSP and Wings A-longs were deranged, but they definitely aren't deranged enough to visit either in a mental hospital and play their schizoparanoia. That's just plain psychopathic. It is. He even admits in the writing that, like, his own friends, like that knew of Francis E. Deck, were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Console Up, subscribe for 3 months. Thank you. Trans Afro Groiper for 10 says, beloved Kiwi Emperor, what's your favorite candy for this spooky season? Also, is the Nick X Tucker Fed mashup worth watching? I did not watch it. I do not give a fuck, and I will not be watching it because I do not give a fuck. And watching it means I give a fuck, so I'm not watching it. As far as candy, like just in general, I'm a big fan of Twix. Twix is probably my favorite of all like the typical candy bars. I had there was a display that had Dubai chocolate in it, which is like chocolate stuffed with pistachio cream. That was pretty fucking good. But that's not really something, unless you like live in Malibu or some shit, you're not handing out Dubai chocolate to the fucking kids. Twix is great though. Pete Leanerson for 1 says, remember kids, it's always morally correct to torture and infirmed elderly people as long as they're racist. That's the real lesson of the day. Now Scott 5 for 5 says, the Talking Heads released a song called Radiohead in 1985. The band Radiohead took their name from that song. I can't prove the song was inspired by Deck, but the timing lines up. It does. I don't know that song off the top of my head, so I can't comment, but it might have been. Red Eyes Black Dragon for 5 says, praise Cobra's magic. Thank you. Octavia's Sales Rep for $20 says, short stream but very info dense. Good stream. Happy Halloween. That's how it usually is with the people streams. If I get over an hour, I'm doing pretty good on those. But it helps a lot if there's media, which in this case there was a ton of media. Thank you. Real Fake Alex Jones for 5 says, feel free to come on the show anytime. We take callers every day. Oh, and a sample of your tap water. I hear it. Astrazine runoff in the water supply is turning podcasters late and gay. I've not heard that one so far, but thank you. Asian Tech Support Price says, rectum lappers could be here. I've never been in this hospital ward before. There could be rectum lappers anywhere. How right you are. Never relax. Ballistic Characteristic for 10 says, happy Halloween. Enjoy candy, trick or treat or child. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Zibidee for 5 says, fuck A-logs, based and true. Irish Pizza 2823 for 2 says, no Joe Winko stream. Fly high, Joe Winko. I was originally, when I was preparing this stream, I was actually going to do a bunch of minor schizo cows that are already dead. And then I just started getting into deck. I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way I can do like a vignette of like 4 different people. There's just too much here. So I ended up just making this deck. There's always next year. Ox Found for 2 says, Bosher, as in kosher bosher, is just the Yiddish word for a young unmarried man, also spelled bocha. Bocha. I did not know that. There's another Yiddish word. I didn't see it in chat, but that he dropped that was funny to me. Space Allen for $50 says Ham Jam. Thank you very much, Space Allen. I appreciate it. Haramburger for 2 says, the requested typewriter is in the mail. Please make haste in disseminating the great secret to the address enclosed that the rest of the Polish heroes can save the universe. The Polish heroes are already tirelessly working to restore the honor of the Slovene race and to preserve the integrity of the Slovene people. Don't you worry. Sneedo for 1 says, imagine Deck's reaction to the gangster computer god Sora AI. Also, happy Halloween, Josh. Dude. He would feel so fucking vindicated if he knew what was coming. He would honestly feel vindicated as shit. Sneeda Stanny for 5 says, you know, the frightening freak Knuckles and we're at Pumpkin Hill. You ready? I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry. And Ace of Sneeds for 5 says, boo! Did I get you? I am mortified. Thank you. Thanks to anybody who gifted subs or anything. I appreciate it. I already played the outro song, so there is no second outro song. Kiwi Friend for 5 says, how much for a Joe Waco stream? You gotta wait until October, buddy. Sorry to say. That's it. Take it easy. See you later. Happy Halloween. Judy Tester for 3 says, I couldn't tell you said rectum laughers or rectum lappers, and I think the former more.